Freya's pav. Why are you denying our mate bond? I repeated, my voice shaking with emotion. I could see the shock register on Logan's face, as if he couldn't quite believe I'd had the audacity to speak of such a thing out loud. But I was done playing games, done pretending I didn't feel the powerful connection between us. It was exhausting, and it was making me miserable. So I stood my ground, determined to make him see that I was worthy of his respect and affection. If you don't want me, reject me, I demanded, my voice a trembling wreck. I could feel my heart shattering into a million pieces with each passing second. He was my mate, and he knew it, but he refused to acknowledge it. And I was tired of being treated like a dirty secret, like some shameful embarrassment. Freya, Logan mumbled, his tone almost disturbingly calm in contrast to my own. My blood ran cold as his response, or lack thereof, sank in. He was rejecting me, just as I'd feared. Don't call me, I mumbled, brushing away the tears that betrayed my hurt and humiliation. I knew that he was going to reject me, but I couldn't bear to hear the words spoken aloud. So I steeled my resolve and decided to do it myself, to save myself the pain of his rejection. Fine, I will do it, I said, my voice hoarse with emotion. As I spoke, Logan's brows furrowed in confusion, but he remained silent, waiting for me to continue. I, Freya Westfield, reject. I began, my words ringing with finality. But I didn't get the chance to finish my sentence. Suddenly, I felt his hands on my hips, pulling me into his embrace with a fierce urgency. And before I could protest or even catch my breath, his lips crashed into mine with a ravenous hunger. I was stunned, shocked, overwhelmed. His lips were soft and warm, his breath hot against my skin. My mind raced, struggling to comprehend the sudden shift in his demeanor. But despite my inner turmoil, my body reacted instinctually, responding to his touch with a fierce yearning of its own. Our lips melded together, our breath mingling as the kiss deepened, his tongue exploring the contours of my mouth with hungry abandon. And though every fiber of my being told me to resist, I found myself melting into his embrace, surrendering to the electricity that crackled between us. As he pulled away from the kiss, his hands still cupping my face, a conflicted expression played across his features. That's not fair, I pouted, the taste of him still lingering on my lips. You didn't let me finish. His eyes locked with mine, a smoldering intensity burning behind their steely depths. You're not rejecting this, he whispered, his breath hot against my ear. Me. Us. It's not an option. His words hung in the air between us, heavy with their implication. My mind raced, a war waging within me as I struggled to make sense of this sudden shift in our dynamic. Logan's fingers gently traced the curve of my cheek, sending shivers down my spine. You're mine, Freya, he said, his voice a low growl, and you always will be. My heart pounded in my chest, a mix of anger and desire surging through me. His words were a whispered caress, sending a shiver of both pleasure and dread down my spine. My little mate, he murmured, his voice low and sensual. And then, as if sensing my thoughts, he added softly, I'm sorry about your miscarriage. The weight of those words seemed to press down on my chest, and I could see a genuine sadness in his eyes that took me by surprise. I wondered if he knew the truth about what had happened to me, about Lucia's involvement. As I stood there, lost in a tangle of emotions, a frantic voice cut through the air. Alpha? Xavier shouted, his face etched with concern. He was usually cool and collected, so his alarm caught my attention immediately. What's wrong? Logan asked, his voice low and dangerous. Alpha, Xavier said, his eyes flickering with urgency. They are attacking us. I don't know how, but they've managed to breach our border security. I could feel the temperature in the room drop as Logan's anger pulsed through the air, a tangible force that sent a shiver of fear down my spine. Let's get you to safety, he said, his voice cold and commanding. Without another word, Logan grabbed my hand and pulled me out of the hospital hall, his movements swift and sure as we navigated the hallways of the PAX compound. Where are we going? I asked, fear making my voice tremble. Logan spared me a brief, reassuring glance. To the bunker, he said. It's heavily fortified and will keep you safe until the threat is dealt with. We reached the bunker in record time, Logan's grip on my hand never faltering as we descended the narrow staircase that led underground. The bunker was dimly lit and eerily quiet, save for the faint echo of footsteps. Wait here, Logan ordered, releasing my hand. I must return to the front lines. But, I started, my protest dying on my lips as Logan pressed a finger to them, his expression grave. It's not safe, Freya, he whispered. He gave her one last lingering look, his eyes filled with both love and fear, before turning and disappearing back up the stairs. Alone in the bunker, I sank down onto a nearby bench, the full weight of what was happening crashing down on me. The rival pack. The breach in security. Logan, fighting on the front lines. And Lucia, who had somehow orchestrated this chaos. Fear and anger roiled within me as I sat in the dim light, helpless to do anything but wait. As the minutes stretched on, the silence in the bunker became unbearable. My wolf howled within me, restless and agitated, sensing the turmoil that raged beyond the confines of our shelter. Finally, I could no longer stand it. Rising from the bench, I started toward the stairs, determined to find Logan and join him on the front lines. I moved through the compound swiftly, keeping to the shadows and evading the patrols that darted down the halls. But as I neared the perimeter, the sounds of battle grew deafening, the scent of blood and fear thick in the air. As I emerged from the shadows, the sight before me stole the breath from my lungs. Logan, my mate, lay on the ground, his body still, a dagger protruding from his chest. His shirt was soaked in blood, and I could hear the steady drip of crimson as it pooled around him. My heart skipped a beat as I stood frozen in horror, unable to process what I was seeing. "No!" I screamed, my voice echoing through the night as I raced to his side. Logan's pav. Darkness enveloped me, cold and unforgiving. Each heartbeat was a struggle, each breath a battle. I could feel the life draining from me, and my vision began to dim. And there she was, my mate, Freya, racing toward me with terror in her eyes. But my body failed me, and I slumped to the ground, consumed with anger and helplessness at not being able to protect her. Then, nothing. Darkness, cold and unrelenting, as my body surrendered to its fate. "Logan!" I heard her sweet, gentle voice as her hands cradled my face. They'd used black magic and wolfsbane to weaken me, and I was filled with rage at the thought. Through the corner of my eye, I saw a vicious wolf racing toward us, bloodlust glinting in its eyes. Every instinct told me to warn Freya to flee, but she refused to leave my side. Instead, I felt a familiar, soft fur brush against my skin. The wolf snarled, its teeth bared and ready to strike. But before it could lunge, another wolf, my wolf, stepped between us, defending its mate to the death. "Freya," I whispered, my voice hoarse and weak, "run." But Freya didn't budge. Instead, she shifted, a shimmering transformation that turned her into a wolf, her amber eyes blazing with determination. "You're beautiful," I croaked, my voice barely audible as I stared at my mate in her wolf form. Her fur was as white as freshly fallen snow, her eyes gleaming with a fiery amber glow. The other wolf snarled and snapped at her, but Freya moved with a grace and speed that belied her size. It was clear that this wasn't just any wolf. This was a creature of legend, a white wolf imbued with incredible power. With a fierce roar, Freya lunged at the enemy wolf, her strength and power crashing into the creature with the force of a tidal wave. The white wolf's fangs sank into the enemy's flesh, tearing and rending with ruthless efficiency. The beast's howls of pain echoed through the night, but Freya refused to relent, the savagery of her attack fueled by the protection of her mate. Darkness enveloped me, but I felt the gentle pressure of a familiar warmth. A soft white fur brushed against my skin, and a warm breath washed over my face. "Freya," I whispered, my voice hoarse with fatigue. But she didn't respond, instead using her teeth to drag me away from the battlefield. I let myself be pulled away from the carnage, surrendering to the darkness that had been calling to me since the moment I was stabbed. My eyes fluttered open, my vision blurry and distorted as I tried to orient myself. Beside me, Freya stared down at me, worry etched onto her face. "Alpha?" she whispered, her voice filled with concern. I grimaced and grunted as I tried to move, correcting her. "Logan, call me Logan." Freya nodded, understanding, but her face remained etched with worry. "Are you all right?" "What happened?" I asked, my voice hoarse as I took in Freya's worried expression. Xavier's arrogant voice cut through the silence. "You were stabbed with wolfsbane. At least you're still alive, thanks to Freya," he added, his tone dismissive. I turned to Freya, but she avoided my gaze, her eyes fixed on the ground. Something about her behavior was off, but my addled mind couldn't quite pinpoint it. "I don't need to rest," I protested. even as my body protested and I sank back onto the bed. Xavier shot me a disapproving glance before leaving the room, the door clicking shut behind him. Alone with Freya, I watched her closely, trying to read the thoughts that flitted across her face. Something had changed, some secret stirring beneath the surface of her composure. "You saved me back there," I mumbled, my voice low and intense. "Don't think I don't remember." Freya's lips curled into a coy smile, and my heart skipped a beat at the sight. "I know you remember," she said playfully. Clearing my throat, I tried to keep my composure. "Thank you, Freya. You saved my life." Her smile softened, and she brushed her fingers against my cheek. "You're welcome, Logan. Wolfsbane blood is not an easy thing to heal," I stated. "I know." She shrugged. I stared at Freya in disbelief, my head still fuzzy with pain and fatigue. "You knew what would help me?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "How?" She shrugged nonchalantly, her eyes shining with a secret knowledge. "It's one of my gifts," she said. "I have a connection to plants, to their healing properties. I know which herbs to use and when." I shook my head, still grappling with the information. My mind raced with questions, each one vying for attention as I tried to wrap my head around this new development. "But why didn't you tell me before?" I asked, perplexed. "You could have been helping me." Freya averted her gaze, her shoulders hunched slightly. "I couldn't," she whispered. "My mother warned me to keep my abilities hidden. She said people would take advantage of me if they knew. But healing is a part of who I am," Freya continued, a small smile tugging at her lips despite her solemn words. "I love it, even if people might look down on me because I'm an Omega and a hybrid." I shook my head, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Freya, you are more than your rank or your bloodline. You're kind, brave, and your gift is incredible. I won't let anyone treat you like you are less than you are." Freya's gaze flicked up to meet mine, her surprise evident. Why are you being so nice to me?" I met her gaze with a level stare, my words ringing true. "Because, Freya, you're my mate and I care about you. I see who you are and I respect and admire that. You're not just some Omega hybrid. You're a strong, talented woman." She shifted uncomfortably under my gaze, and I could practically see her struggling to believe my words. With a sigh, Freya rose to her feet, smoothing out the folds of her dress. "I think you need to rest," she said, her tone gentle but firm. I feigned a salute, keeping my tongue firmly in my cheek. "Yes, ma'am?" Freya rolled her eyes, but I could see the hint of a smile on her lips. "I mean it, Logan. Rest. Don't make me have to come back here and knock you out myself." As Freya made her way to the door, my heart clenched with the fear of her leaving. "Freya," I called out, my voice rough with emotion. She turned, a quizzical expression on her face. "Logan, is something wrong?" I opened my mouth, then closed it again, struggling to find the words. Finally, I settled on a simple truth. "Don't go. Please, stay with me." Freya's pav. For a moment, my breath caught in my throat. His request, so simple, so intimate, had shaken me to my core. Okay," I stammered, my face flushing with a mix of embarrassment and something else, something more profound. Logan's smile, genuine and unguarded, warmed my heart. It was the first time I'd seen him smile in a way that made my heart skip a beat, and I knew that I wanted to see that smile again and again. Without a word, Logan gently pulled me down beside him, inviting me to rest against his chest. I could feel his steady heartbeat beneath my cheek, his warmth enveloping me. "Thank you," he whispered, his fingers entwining with my hair. "I feel safe when you're here." A lump formed in my throat and I blinked back tears, overwhelmed by the depth of his trust in me. "I won't let anything happen to you, Logan," I vowed, my voice thick with emotion. Logan chuckled softly, the sound sending a pleasant shiver down my spine. "Well, you know what they say, great minds think alike." I tilted my head, frowning slightly as I gestured towards the bandaged wound on his chest. "Does it hurt?" He shook his head. "Not even a bit. I'm fine, Piccola." The way he said that word Piccola made my stomach flutter. My question hung heavy in the air between us, and for a moment I regretted my impulsiveness. "Are you going to reject me?" Before I could take it back, Logan shook his head, his expression softening. "Sleep, Freya." I bit my lip, reading between the lines. He didn't want to discuss it, not now, and perhaps that was for the best. But as I closed my eyes, nestled against his chest, I couldn't help but wonder what the future held for us. The dawnlight filtered in through the window, a gentle caress that coaxed me from my slumber. But as my eyes fluttered open, I was struck by an overwhelming sense of emptiness. Logan was gone. I sat up slowly, pulling the sheets closer around my shoulders, my heart sinking as I took in the vacant spot beside me. Had he gone to attend to his duties? Or had he fled, rejecting me as his mate? My mind raced with possibilities, but the uncertainty left me feeling adrift. With a heavy heart, I slipped out of Logan's room, padding silently down the hall to my own chambers. But as I passed through the ornate corridors, I heard a familiar voice call out to me. I froze at the sound of Lucia's voice, bristling with displeasure at the sight of the petite blonde. "You!" she exclaimed, her tone harsh and accusatory. I glared at her, my teeth clenching in frustration. How had Logan allowed her into his pack's mansion? But I knew it wasn't my place to question his decision, no matter how infuriating. "What do you want, Lucia?" I spat, my voice dripping with contempt. Lucia's lips curled into a smirk, her eyes flashing with malice. "What do I want? Oh, I just thought you might want to know that Logan is seriously reconsidering his decision to mate with you," she said, a cruel edge to her voice. My heart plummeted into the pit of my stomach, my blood running cold at her words. "You're lying," I growled, my fists balling at my sides. "Am I?" Lucia cocked her head to the side, her smile widening. I tried to brush past Lucia, not wanting to give her words a second thought, but she grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin as she dragged me back. "Where do you think you're going?" she sneered, her grip tightening. "Let me go," I snarled, struggling against her hold. But I knew that if I shifted or fought back, I could risk revealing the truth about Lucia being the reason I'd lost our unborn pup. I didn't want to cause trouble. My face contorted with rage, my eyes flashing with a mixture of pain and fury. "Touch me one more time," I warned, my voice like ice, "and I promise you will bleed." Lucia laughed, a cruel cutting sound. "Ooh, look at you," she taunted, her smile twisting into a sneer. "You think you're a real badass now? But don't forget your place, Omega." My lip curled in disgust, my anger boiling over. "My place?" I spat. "I'll tell you where my place is. It's by Logan's side as his mate, which is more than I can say for you, witch." Lucia's smile faltered, a glint of fear flickering in her eyes. "But you know what I did, don't you?" she whispered, her voice shaky. "Oh, I know," I hissed, my eyes narrowing into slits. My eyes blazed with fury, my heart still raw with pain and loss. "You are the reason I lost my unborn pups," I growled, my words lashing out like a whip. "And I will let Logan know. You'll face the consequences of your actions." Lucia's grip tightened, a fierce determination flashing across her features. "You won't tell him," she stated, her tone low and commanding. "If you do, I'll make sure you'll regret it." I snorted with derision, unfazed by her threats. "You really think you can scare me? You're pathetic." Lucia reached for me once more, but I was quick. I dodged her grasp, spinning around to slam the heel of my hand into her temple. Lucia staggered, but I wasn't finished. My body surged with adrenaline, and I rammed her head against the wall, again and again, until her knees buckled and she slumped to the ground, dazed. "But stay away from me and my mate," I spat, standing over Lucia's limp form, "or you'll regret it." I leaned in close, my voice a low snarl. "This is for my baby," I growled, my words laced with venom. And then, with the utmost contempt, I spat on her face, letting the moisture mix with the blood oozing from her wounds. Straightening, I turned away from Lucia's prone form, her words echoing in my mind. "You won't tell him." But Logan deserved to know the truth. Lucia's pav. I grit my teeth, glaring at the woman staring back at me in the mirror. This rage, this fury, it consumed me. "She will pay for what she's done," I snarled, balling my hands into fists. That Omega Freya. She had humiliated me, disrespected me, and now she'd taken my mate, my Logan, away from me. But I wasn't done yet. I would make her suffer, just as she had made me suffer. Logan wasn't just my ex, he was my childhood lover, my best friend, the only one who had ever truly understood me. And now, Freya had stolen him away, just like she had stolen everything else from me. My hand instinctively went to my heart, my fingers wrapping around the key that Logan had given me so long ago. It was a symbol of our love, our bond, a promise that we would always be together. But now that promise has been broken. Logan's betrayal stung like 1,000 knives, each one piercing deeper and deeper into my heart. I had devoted my life to him, loved him with all that I was, And for what? To be cast aside, discarded like a piece of trash. And for what? An Omega. I seethed, my blood boiling with rage. An Omega, someone so beneath me, someone who couldn't even hold a candle to my own strength and beauty. If I couldn't have Logan, then no one could, not even Freya. My fingers tightened around the key in my hand, and I let out a low, feral growl. Freya may have Logan's affections for now, but I would find a way to destroy their bond, to break them apart and make Logan see that he belonged with me, and me alone. A dark plan began to form in my mind, a scheme so twisted, so ruthless, that even Logan himself would shudder to behold it. But I didn't care. I would do whatever it took to destroy Freya and reclaim Logan's heart for myself. My eyes narrowed with determination, my lips curling into a cruel smile. Yes, if Logan wouldn't love me, I would bring him down with me. After all, I knew all of his secrets, all of his vulnerabilities. I knew the places where his armor was thinnest, where a single well-placed strike could shatter him entirely. I would tear down everything he had built, everything he held dear. I would leave him broken, battered, and alone, just as he had left me. And then, maybe then, he would finally understand what he had thrown away. The blood was a stain on my face, a physical reminder of the rage that burned inside me. But I would not let it linger. With deliberate precision, I wiped away the last traces of red, revealing the unblemished pale skin beneath. My lips curved into a smile of satisfaction as I studied myself in the mirror, my cold blue eyes framed by the thin, wire-rimmed glasses I slipped over my nose. I would be the perfect picture of elegance and grace when I returned to NorthRidge Pack, a queen ready to take back her kingdom. The 3-hour drive had been a silent, brooding journey, but now I'd finally arrived at my destination. The moment my feet touched the ground, I could feel their eyes on me, the hidden watchers in the woods, tracking my every movement. But I paid them no mind, my focus fixed on the imposing gate that loomed in front of me. 2 hulking figures stood guard, their arms crossed over their chests, their eyes narrow and suspicious. "State your business," one of the guards demanded, his voice gruff. With a calm, collected demeanor, I met the guard's steely gaze, a slight smile playing on my lips. "My name is Lucia," I replied, my voice dripping with honeyed sweetness. "I'm here to speak with Alpha Maxim." The guard raised a skeptical eyebrow, his lip curling into a sneer. "Alpha Maxim doesn't just speak with anyone," he retorted, his arms remaining firmly crossed. "I have valuable information that concerns the Alpha of the NorthRidge Pack," I said, my voice cool and even. "Information that could greatly benefit Alpha Maxim." The guards exchanged a look, their skepticism melting away as the words Alpha Maxim passed my lips. One of them shifted on his feet, his eyes flicking back and forth between me and the gate. You need to stay here," he said, his voice gruff. "I'll inform Alpha Maxim that you're here." With a smile of satisfaction, I watched the guard disappear into the stronghold, leaving me alone with the other. I crossed my arms, leaning against the wall as I waited for Alpha Maxim to arrive. My mind raced, plotting my next moves, and a grim smile tugged at my lips as I thought of how this day would unfold. "So," I drawled, turning my gaze to the remaining guard, "how long have you been serving Alpha Maxim?" The guard stiffened, his jaw clenching slightly at my question. "Long enough," he grunted, his eyes darting back to the gate. I hummed, unconvinced. "Really? And at that time, you've never seen anyone like me before, I'm guessing?" He shifted uncomfortably, his hand twitching toward the knife at his belt. "Why are you here?" he demanded, his voice suddenly tense. The guard's words cut me off mid-sentence, and I quirked an eyebrow in amusement. Clearly my presence had gotten Alpha Maxim's attention. I pushed off the wall, following the guard as he led me into the heart of the stronghold. The air grew colder, darker, and I could feel the eyes of countless shifters on me as we passed by their dwellings. Finally, we arrived at a large, imposing door. "He's waiting for you inside," the guard said, his voice low and gruff. With a satisfied smile, I swept past the guard and pushed open the door. Inside, a room of shadows awaited me, lit only by a solitary candle on a table in the center. And there, in the shadows, a pair of piercing golden eyes shone like embers in the darkness. "Alpha Maxim?" I purred, bowing my head in a mock deferential gesture. "I apologize for the intrusion. I'm here on urgent business." The silence stretched on, pregnant with tension, before the owner of those golden eyes finally spoke. I am here to turn against my alpha. Maxim's eyes widened slightly, a predatory glint shining through the shadows. So, you're willing to betray your alpha? He murmured almost to himself. I inclined my head, a small, knowing smile playing on my lips. Yes, I confirmed, but it won't be for free. The alpha's lips twisted into a cruel smirk. Oh, of course not. He gestured to a chair, the candlelight flickering against the dark wood, Freya's pav. The past few days had been tranquil, almost peaceful, but beneath the calm facade, a storm brewed within my chest. It wasn't anger that stirred within me, but a sense of unease, a foreboding dread that something was about to go terribly wrong. The quiet stretched on, deceptive in its stillness, but I knew that beyond the horizon, the calm would soon shatter like glass. My fingernails dug into my palms, an ache pulsing through my fingers as I clenched and unclenched them. The sky outside my window darkened, the clouds thickening like blood clotting. The air felt heavy, suffocating, the silence humming like electricity in the stillness. Every shadow held a threat, every whisper of wind held a warning. I could feel the tension rising, the rage simmering beneath the surface of my skin, and I knew that I had to act soon. Before it was too late. Rising from my chair, I crossed the room, my feet soundless on the cold stone floor. Logan had been nothing but kind and considerate since his arrival. Despite his position as Alpha, he had shown me a level of care and respect that was almost gentle. It was almost as if he were avoiding my body entirely, his touches lingering just shy of the mark, never quite crossing that invisible line. And while a part of me yearned for the heat of his touch, the fire of his passion, I was content to let things unfold in their own time. Elena, it looks like it's about to rain, I observed, my gaze drifting to the ominous clouds gathering on the horizon. Elena flopped onto my bed, a grin curving her lips. I guess so, she laughed, rolling onto her stomach. Missin' Logan already? She teased, waggling her eyebrows playfully. The comment drew a laugh from my lips, dispelling some of the unease that had been building within me. You're incorrigible. So, Elena prompted, propping herself up on her elbows, you haven't exactly been shy about describing your relationship with Logan, but if you two aren't, you know, being intimate, what's the holdup? Her bluntness caught me off guard, and I felt a flush of heat rise to my cheeks. I don't know, I stammered, my eyes darting away from her penetrating gaze. I think he's taking his time. Taking his time after he took your virginity? Got you pregnant too? Elena grinned, making me shake my head. Oh, come on, Elena, I said, tossing a pillow at her. You know that's not the same thing. Elena grinned, catching the pillow and hugging it to her chest. Well, maybe he's just trying to be respectful, she mused, her expression thoughtful. He is the alpha, after all. Maybe he's just trying to let you adjust to all these changes in your life. Oh, please, Elena, I scoffed, rolling my eyes. Logan may be the alpha, but he's not some soft-hearted romantic. He's strong, ruthless, and fiercely protective. He's not just going to hold back because he's worried about me. Elena bit her lip, eyeing me with a hint of amusement. You're his mate, though, she pointed out. You know how these things work. No matter how wicked an alpha can be, Elena continued, her eyes alight with mischief, his Luna will always have a special place in his heart. I sighed, feeling my shoulders slump slightly. Maybe you're right, I admitted, running a hand through my hair. But there's just something about all of this that's nagging at me. I can't shake the feeling that something's about to go wrong. Elena's playful demeanor faded, replaced by a concerned expression. Wrong how? She asked, her tone serious. What exactly is bothering you? I hesitated, uncertain how to explain the gnawing sense of dread that had settled in my gut. I don't know, I replied, shaking my head. It's just the tension in the air, the storm brewing outside. It's like the world is warning me that something bad is about to happen. I'm sure it's nothing, Elena said, reaching out to squeeze my hand. You're just letting your imagination run wild. Logan's the alpha, remember? He'll protect you, even if something were to happen. I gave her a weak smile, but the unease inside me refused to subside. I hope you're right, I whispered, but even as I spoke, a chill ran down my spine. Curious to quench my thirst, I left the room with the intention of getting some water from the kitchen. But as I neared my destination, I heard a voice that brought me to a halt, Lucia's. Is that water for the alpha? Lucia asked, her tone sharp. Unsure of what was happening, I remained still, straining my ears to catch the response. But silence greeted me. Something was amiss, and I couldn't shake the feeling that it had something to do with the pitcher of water Lucia had intercepted from the maid. "Yes, Alpha just arrived and requested water," the maid answered, sounding confused. "But why are you offering to take it to him?" I held my breath, my heart pounding in my chest as Lucia's voice became honeyed and sweet. "Oh, I'm just trying to be helpful," she purred. "Don't you think it's more fitting for a packmate to serve the Alpha rather than a mere servant?" The maid hesitated, seeming uncertain. The maid acquiesced, handing the pitcher to Lucia. "Of course, ma'am," she said, bowing her head respectfully. Watching Lucia stride away with the water, a sense of unease tugged at me. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, but I wasn't sure what. Deciding to keep a close eye on the situation, I quietly followed Lucia's footsteps, keeping my distance so as not to arouse suspicion. As I trailed behind her, I saw her approach Logan's room, pitcher in hand. I continued to watch Lucia as she approached Logan's room. My anxiety increases with each step. The closer she got, the more convinced I became that she was up to no good. But what was her plan? And why was she so interested in delivering the water herself? As Lucia reached the door, she paused and glanced around, as if checking to see if anyone was watching. Seeing no one, she twisted the knob and slipped into Logan's room, her footsteps barely audible. My heart raced as I crept closer to the door. "Mate is in trouble," my wolf said. "Freya's pav." "Shh," I murmured, pressing my ear to the door, trying to make sense of the muffled noises from inside the room. My wolf bristled, the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end. "Something's not right," she said, her tone urgent. "We need to act now." My mind racing, I retreated from the door, my feet carrying me away from Logan's room. My wolf growled in protest, but I ignored her as I fled back to the safety of my own bedroom. Elena sat on my bed, a worried frown creasing her forehead. "What's wrong?" she asked, her eyes full of concern. I shook my head, my mind reeling. "Something doesn't feel right," I whispered, dropping onto the bed beside her. "I'm afraid for Logan." Elena's soft lips pressed against my cheek, and I forced a smile, my face muscles tightening as I tried to conceal my fear. "You worry a lot," she said with a light laugh. "I know," I said, trying to keep my tone light, "but something just doesn't feel right. I can't shake this feeling." Elena sighed, resting her hand on my shoulder. "Well, don't jump to conclusions just yet. Logan is the Alpha. He's strong." "He's strong, and he can handle himself," Elena continued, her tone growing more serious. "You don't know that anything's actually wrong. Maybe Lucia was just being helpful, you know?" I hesitated, my lips pressed together in a tight line. I knew that Elena was just trying to calm my fears, but deep down, I couldn't help but think that something was amiss. "What if you're wrong?" I asked, my voice a hushed whisper. "What if Logan?" "Enough," Elena said firmly, her voice cutting through the air. She pushed me back onto the bed, a frown creasing her forehead. "You need to sleep," she declared, her tone brooking no argument. "You're not doing Logan or yourself any favors by obsessing over this." Before I could protest, Elena swept from the room, the door clicking shut behind her. Alone, I stared at the ceiling, my mind spinning with worry for Logan. As sleep claimed me, I tumbled into a world of twisted, nightmarish images. Trees loomed around me, casting shadows that twisted and danced in the moonlight. And then I saw her, the moonlight gleaming off the blade of her knife. "Logan's mine," Lucia hissed, her eyes glittering with madness as she stalked towards me. "He belongs to me." I backed away, my heart hammering in my chest as I desperately searched for a way out. The nightmare seemed to stretch on forever, the branches of the trees curling into menacing, claw-like shapes. Lucia advanced, her step silent and deadly, her knife glinting in the moonlight. "You can't have him," she snarled. "He's mine, and I'll do whatever it takes to keep him." I felt a cold sweat break out on my skin as I realized that there was no escape. "Lucia, please," I pleaded, my voice shaking. The knife descended, the blade gleaming with a cold, deadly light. And then, just as the blade was about to pierce my skin, I bolted upright in bed, gasping for air as the nightmare dissipated. My heart pounded, my pulse racing as the memory of the nightmare lingered in the recesses of my mind. I patted my chest, trying to slow my racing heart, my mind reeling with the fear and panic that had consumed me only moments before. Outside, the wind howled, sending chills down my spine. My wolf stirred within me, her agitation seeping into my consciousness. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. Pushing the covers aside, I rose from the bed, my bare feet padding across the cold stone floor as I made my way to Logan's room. The door stood open, but the room was empty, the bed pristine and untouched. My skin prickled with dread as my wolf growled in warning, her instincts on high alert. I could sense Logan's presence, but he was not in the room. Gripped by a sudden fear, I dashed out of Logan's room, racing through the hallways of the house. My bare feet slapped against the floor, the sound echoing off the walls. "Logan!" I called, my voice ringing through the house. "Logan, where are you?" But there was no answer, only the eerie silence of the night and the ragged sound of my own breathing. I paused, my heart pounding in my chest, a sickening knot of dread twisting in my stomach. The cold night air bit at my skin as I dashed into the forest, my bare feet growing numb against the rough, icy ground. The smell of pine needles and fallen leaves filled my nostrils, mingling with the faint, haunting scent of Logan's presence. "Logan!" I called again, my voice echoing off the dark, imposing shapes of the trees. But still, there was no answer, only the rustling of branches and the distant hoot of an owl. I plunged deeper into the forest, the scents and sounds of the night swirling around me like a dark, inescapable fog. "Logan!" I cried, my voice cracking with desperation. "Where are you?" I stumbled through the underbrush, the frigid air seeping into my bones. But still, I kept going, guided by my wolf's instincts, her wild heart beating in sync with mine. The scent grew stronger, more overpowering until I could almost taste it on my tongue. And then I saw him. Time seemed to slow to a crawl as I approached the motionless form of my mate. He lay sprawled on the forest floor, the snowdrifts already beginning to blanket his body with a cold, icy shroud. "Logan!" I cried, my voice cracking with anguish as I fell to my knees beside him. My fingers trembled as I reached out to touch him, my mind refusing to believe what my eyes were seeing. "Logan, please," I whispered, my voice raw and broken. As I cradled his head in my lap, my eyes swimming with unshed tears, I heard his voice, weak and strained, but still undeniably him. "Shh, Piccola," he murmured, his voice a raspy whisper. "I'm okay." My heart pounded in my chest, relief washing through me like a tidal wave. "Logan!" I choked out, my voice a choked sob. "Oh, thank God! I thought I'd lost you!" The corner of his mouth twitched upward in a wry smile, the movement causing him to groan in pain. "It would take more than poison to kill me," he rasped, his voice laced with dark humor. "Freya's pav." I looked at him, my eyes searching his pale, sweat-slicked face, my hands trembling as they touched his clammy skin. "You look sick." The redness in Logan's eyes was stark, frightening as he struggled to explain what had happened. "Someone poisoned me," he rasped, his voice weak and hoarse. I stared at him, my mind racing, my heart pounding as I took in his words. Someone had tried to kill him. Someone who wanted him dead. "I need to get you back to the mansion," I said, my voice shaking with urgency. "You need help." Logan's words were a growl, a fierce declaration of his vulnerability as he coughed, his body racked with spasms. "Nobody is meant to see me this vulnerable," he rasped, his voice strong even in his weakened state. "Logan, please," I begged, tears spilling from my eyes. "You need help. If you don't let me get you back to the mansion, you're going to." "No," Logan snapped, his hand tightening on my arm. My heart in my throat, I dashed back into the mansion, racing through the dark halls and up to the privacy of my room. I tore through my things, searching for the herbs and potions I'd learned to use in my time with the pack, my hands shaking as I gathered what I needed. As fast as I could, I retraced my steps back to the forest, the moon casting silver shadows across the snow-dappled ground. I found Logan where I'd left him, his breathing ragged, his eyes closed. In the freezing darkness, I brought the herbs to Logan's lips, letting him taste their earthy, bitter flavor. He swallowed the herbs down, wincing as he did so. I placed my hand on his chest, feeling the unsteady rise and fall of his breath, his heart beating erratically beneath my fingertips. "Riposo e guarigione," I chanted, my voice a soft melodic murmur. "Rest and healing." "Stay with me, Logan," I whispered, my voice filled with fear as I gently scooped him into my arms. The trek back to the mansion was treacherous, the wind howling through the forest, the snow swirling around us like a raging blizzard. But still I carried on, my steps sure and steady, my heart aching as I watched Logan's face, his lips tinged with blue, his skin cold to the touch. "Hold on," I urged him, my voice choking with tears. The journey back to the mansion was arduous, my arms burning with the effort of carrying Logan, my lungs struggling for breath in the frigid night air. But finally, after what felt like an eternity, we reached the safety of the mansion's shadowed halls. I carried Logan up to his room, setting him gently on the bed, my fingers trembling as I undressed him, tucking him under the covers to ward off the chill. I held his hand in mine, watching the steady rise and fall of his chest, my heart aching with love and fear. Minutes passed in heavy silence, the steady tick of the clock, the only sound to break the stillness of the room. And then, slowly, Logan stirred, his eyes fluttering open, his chest heaving as he sat up, a grimace of pain twisting his features. Without a word, he rose from the bed and disappeared into the bathroom, the sound of running water echoing through the room. When he emerged, his hair damp and his skin flushed from the heat, he crossed the room in silence, slipping under the covers beside me. The room was thick with tension, the silence between us heavy with unspoken words. And then, as if to break the spell, Logan turned towards me, his eyes intense and smoldering as he leaned in, his lips brushing mine. I gasped as he kissed me, his lips warm and possessive as they explored mine, his tongue tangling with mine in a fierce, urgent dance. I felt myself melting into the kiss, my body alive with desire, my heart pounding with love and lust. "Logan, Logan," I whispered, my voice hoarse with need, my lips parting against his. "You scared me." "I know." He growled, his eyes blazing with intensity as he pulled away, his hand reaching for mine. "But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." His fingers wrapped around mine, his touch sending a shiver of desire through my body. I stared at him, my heart racing, my breath shallow and ragged. A feral grin spread across Logan's face, his eyes flashing with heat as he scooped me into his arms. "Thank you for saving me," he murmured, his voice low and dangerous. "But I think it's only fair that I reward you in kind." I shivered as he carried me out of the room and through the silent halls of the mansion, his arms strong and sure as he swept me away into the forest, the moonlight casting eerie shadows across the snow-covered ground. As we disappeared into the darkness of the forest, I could feel Logan's heart beating fast against my chest, his breath hot on my skin. He carried me deeper into the woods, into the heart of the pack's territory, where the scent of pine and snow and wolves filled the air. Finally, he stopped, lowering me gently to the ground in the clearing where we had first made love. The trees rustled in the wind, the stars sparkling like diamonds in the night sky. The clearing was a perfect circle, the trees surrounding us like a shield, the moon and stars shining down like spotlights. The snow crunched beneath our feet, the cold biting at our skin, but the heat of our desire burned like a flame between us. I stared up at Logan, his eyes hungry and intense, his body hard and strong. He reached out, his fingers brushing against the curve of my cheek, his touch gentle and possessive. "You are mine," he murmured, his voice low and dangerous, "and I am yours." A surge of desire coursed through me, my heart racing, my skin tingling with anticipation. I closed my eyes, the world around me, dissolving into darkness as Logan's hands moved over my body, his touch setting my nerves alight. He undressed me, his fingers deft and sure as he unbuttoned my shirt, his lips trailing hot kisses down my neck and collarbone. "Freya's pav," I sighed, arching my back as he explored my body, his touch intoxicating, his desire undeniable. As I lay beneath Logan, his touch driving me wild, his words sent a shiver of desire down my spine. "You make him go crazy," he growled, his voice low and dangerous. "Kia, he craves every part of you." "Who?" I whispered, my voice breathless with need. "My wolf," Logan replied, his voice a rough growl. "You make him want to go insane. You are the most beautiful, most captivating creature he has ever encountered." A devilish grin spread across Logan's face, his eyes dark with desire as he stared down at me, his body heavy and firm against mine. "You make it sound like such a bad thing," he growled, his voice dripping with lust. "Desire becomes dangerous when it can't be controlled," he whispered, his lips brushing my ear, his breath hot and heavy against my skin. "And you, my little mate, have been taunting my wolf for far too long. I arched my back as Logan's words sent a surge of excitement through me, his fingers trailing down my stomach, his touch electric. "Do you think I'm going to let you tease me forever?" he purred, his voice low and dangerous. "My patience is wearing thin, Freya, and Kia wants to claim you, in every way possible." I gasped, the desire burning hotter within me as Logan's words sent my pulse racing, his fingers tracing the curve of my hip, his body pressed tightly against mine. "You're mine, Freya," Logan growled, his voice raw and primal as he leaned in, his lips brushing against my ear, his breath hot and heavy. "And I'm going to prove it to you, my little mate. I'm going to claim you, here, in the heart of the forest, where the wolves howl and the moon shines bright." I shuddered with desire as Logan's hands moved over my body, his touch hard and insistent, his fingers teasing and tantalizing. I gasped as Logan's fingers teased the waistband of my pants, his lips trailing down my neck and collarbone, his breath hot against my skin. "My little mate?" he growled, his voice thick with desire. "You have no idea how much I want you." I moaned softly, my body alive with need, as Logan's hands moved over me, his fingers unbuttoning my pants, his touch firm and insistent. I could feel his desire, his lust, his love, all coursing through me, overwhelming my senses, driving me wild. Logan's lips moved over my skin, his tongue flicking against my collarbone, his teeth grazing the delicate flesh of my neck. "I've waited so long for this," he whispered, his voice ragged with need as he slipped his fingers beneath the waistband of my pants, his touch hot and heavy. I shuddered with anticipation as Logan's fingers slipped lower, teasing my inner thigh, his breath hot and ragged against my skin. Logan's fingers moved slowly, seductively, teasing the sensitive skin of my inner thigh, his touch tantalizing, his breath hot against my skin. "You are so beautiful," he murmured, his voice low and dangerous as he slipped his fingers beneath the fabric of my underwear, his touch sending sparks of pleasure coursing through me. I gasped, my body trembling with desire as Logan's fingers explored my most intimate places, his touch firm and insistent, his lips brushing my ear. I moaned, my body arched and aching for more as Logan's fingers teased and tormented my most intimate places, his touch hot and demanding. "You are mine," he growled, his voice a low, dangerous rumble as his fingers pressed deeper, his touch insistent and unyielding. "And I'm going to claim you, right here, right now, in the heart of the forest." As Logan's fingers worked their magic, his touch hot and demanding, I felt his lust and desire swirling around me like a storm. But I could sense something else, something deeper, more primal. "Logan," I whispered, my voice thick with need as he teased my most intimate places, his touch sending jolts of pleasure through my body. "I want you. But this time, I want you to mark me." Logan paused, his fingers still moving slowly, teasingly, his eyes locked on mine, his gaze intense and unwavering. "You want me to mark you?" he growled, his voice low and dangerous, his lips curling into a wicked grin. "Are you sure you're ready for that, my little mate?" I nodded, my body trembling with desire as I met his gaze, my breath hot and heavy. "I'm ready," I whispered, my voice trembling with anticipation. Logan leaned in, his lips brushing against my ear, his fingers still exploring my most intimate places. "Then you'll have to submit to me," he growled, his voice low and dangerous. "You'll have to let me take you, claim you, and mark you as my own. Are you ready for that?" I shuddered, the anticipation building within me as I nodded, my body aching for him, my heart pounding with desire. "I'm ready," I whispered, my voice trembling with need. As my words left my lips, Logan's fingers tightened, his touch firm and unyielding, his breath hot against my skin. And then in one swift, feral motion, his teeth sunk into my neck, his lips pressing hard against my flesh as he drew blood, marking me as his own. I cried out, my body arching against his, the pleasure and the pain merging into a maelstrom of sensation, my heart racing, my breath ragged. As Logan licked and sucked at the wound on my neck, his mark upon my skin, his words echoing in my mind, I felt something shift within me, something deep and primal. I felt the pull of his desire, the connection between us like a tether, binding us together. And as his tongue traced the curve of my neck, his teeth nipping at my skin, I felt myself surrendering to him, to his desire, to his need. "Mark me," he commanded. Freya's pav. As Logan's lips brushed against my neck, his voice rough and commanding, I felt my body tensing, anticipation and desire coursing through me. "Mark me," he growled, his voice low and dangerous, his fingers digging into my skin, his eyes blazing with desire. I nodded, my body trembling with need as I offered myself to him, my heart pounding with anticipation. "Mark me," I whispered, my voice barely more than a breath. As my fingers wrapped around Logan's neck, I felt his pulse racing beneath my fingertips, his breath hot and ragged against my skin. I leaned in, my lips pressing against his neck, my tongue exploring the curve of his skin, his body tense and trembling. And then, without hesitation, I sank my teeth into his flesh, the taste of his blood on my tongue, my own desire swelling with the primal act. I felt Logan's fingers slip between my legs, his touch hot and demanding as he explored my most intimate places, his own desire burning hot within me. As I lapped at the wound on Logan's neck, his mark upon my skin, his fingers moved against me, his touch insistent and unyielding. I moaned softly, my body writhing with pleasure, my breath hot and ragged. I could feel the blood pounding in my veins, the heat of our passion rising like a flame, our bodies moving in a primal rhythm, our desire pulsing between us like a living thing. "Mine," he growled, his voice low and dangerous. "You're mine." As Logan's lips met mine, his kiss deep and possessive, I could taste the blood on his tongue, the desire coursing through him like wildfire. And then, with a growl, he pulled away, his eyes blazing with need. "On your knees," he commanded, his voice rough and demanding. "I want you to taste me." I nodded, my body thrumming with desire as I sank to my knees before him, his arousal hard and insistent against my lips. As I knelt before Logan, his arousal throbbing against my lips, my heart was pounding, my breath hot and ragged. With a growl, he tangled his fingers in my hair, pulling me closer, his need burning bright within him. "Taste me," he commanded, his voice low and dangerous, his gaze fierce and hungry. And then, without hesitation, I parted my lips, taking him into my mouth, my tongue exploring the curves and ridges of his arousal. As I tasted Logan, my tongue teasing the sensitive tip of his arousal, my lips wrapped tight around him, I could feel his pleasure building, his breathing growing ragged, his grip tightening in my hair. He moaned softly, his hips thrusting against me, his need growing hotter and more urgent by the second. "That's it," he growled, his voice low and dangerous. "Take me deeper." As I sank further onto Logan's arousal, my throat tightening around him, my tongue swirling and teasing, I felt his pleasure rising, his body tensing with need. "Freya," he groaned, his voice raw with desire, his hands clenching and unclenching in my hair. "You're driving me wild." I moaned softly, the sound vibrating against his arousal, my pleasure mingling with his as I took him deeper, his taste and his scent filling my senses. With each thrust of Logan's hips, his arousal growing harder and thicker in my mouth, his pleasure building like a storm, I felt my own desire rising, my own need growing more intense. I moaned again, the sound throaty and wanton, as I felt Logan's pleasure building, his grip tightening in my hair, his breathing ragged and raw. And then suddenly, he tensed, his body rigid with desire, his pleasure spilling into my mouth, his moan loud and primal in the darkness of the forest. I sighed, savoring the taste of Logan's pleasure, his body trembling with need as he shuddered with release. Slowly he pulled away, his eyes blazing with desire, his lips curved in a wicked grin. "You're a natural," he growled, his voice low and dangerous. "But I think it's time for me to show you how much you've been driving me wild." With a smirk, Logan pulled me to my feet, his hands roaming over my body, his touch insistent and demanding. "Get ready," he whispered, his voice husky and dangerous. "I'm going to take you now, in the heart of the forest." My breath quickened as Logan pressed me against a tree, his body hard and insistent against mine, his hands exploring my curves, his lips hot and demanding against my skin. Logan's hands were everywhere, his touch hot and hungry as he explored my body, his lips brushing against my neck, his teeth grazing the delicate skin. "You're mine," he growled, his voice raw with desire as he pressed against me, his arousal hard and insistent against my thighs. I moaned softly, my body thrumming with pleasure as I felt his hands slide between my legs, his fingers teasing my most intimate places, his touch electric. With a groan, Logan pushed himself deep inside me, his monster hard and demanding as he filled me completely, his hands gripping my hips, his breath hot and ragged against my skin. I cried out, the pleasure coursing through me, my body arched and aching for more as Logan began to move, his thrusts deep and powerful, his desire a living thing between us. "That's it," he growled, his voice low and dangerous as he drove deeper, his pleasure and mine building to a crescendo in the darkness of the forest. As Logan's movements grew faster, his thrusts more demanding, his pleasure mounting, I felt my own desire rising like a tidal wave, my body shaking with need, my breath coming in ragged gasps. "Yes," I cried out, my voice raw with desire, my nails digging into his skin as his rhythm grew wilder, more insistent, his pleasure hot and heavy within me. "Freya," he groaned, his voice hoarse with need, his body tense and trembling, his release building like a storm. Logan's voice was a growl, primal and fierce as his release approached, his body shuddering with the force of his pleasure. "Freya," he groaned, his voice raw with desire, his hands gripping my hips as he drove deeper, harder, faster. "Yes!" I cried out, my own release building within me, my body arching with need, my nerves alight with pleasure. And then suddenly we were there, our bodies trembling, our pleasure spilling over in a wave of ecstasy, our cries echoing through the forest. As our cries faded, the night falling silent once again, Logan and I clung to each other, higher, our bodies still trembling with the echoes of our pleasure. "Freya," he whispered, his voice low and dangerous, his lips brushing against my neck. "You're mine." I shivered, my body still tingling with pleasure as I tilted my head, exposing the tender skin of my neck. "Yours," I murmured, my voice a soft sigh. "Always." Freya's pav. My body is still humming with the remnants of our passion, every fiber of my being aching from the intensity of Logan's lovemaking. As he carries me down to the softest bed I've ever laid eyes on, his movements are tender and gentle, a stark contrast to the feral frenzy that took hold of us moments ago. The sheets envelop me in comfort, Logan's warm embrace the perfect conclusion to our wild romp in the woods. "Tired already?" Logan mumbled, his voice heavy with desire. His eyes still smoldered with passion. I laughed lightly, pushing him away as he reached for my neck. "You are something else," I whispered. "Your body is an addiction, Piccola," he growled, his voice aching with hunger. I felt the heat of his gaze on my skin, his words igniting a fire within me. My heart raced and my breath quickened. I could feel the pull of his desire, the magnetic force drawing me closer. "You should be careful, Logan," I murmured, my voice husky. "I might just get addicted to you, too." He smirked, his eyes alight with mischief. "Dangerous games, little mate." His voice was like velvet, wrapping around me, enticing me further. "Care to play?" "Temptation you are," I purred, rolling onto my side and letting my fingers trail along his chest, relishing in the heat of his skin. "What do you have in mind?" Logan let out a low chuckle, his hand capturing mine and pressing it against his heart. I felt the steady rhythm of his heartbeat beneath my palm, the feral wildness of the wolf within him thrumming in time. "I'm thinking you, me, the rest of the night," he murmured, his voice dark and dangerous. "Let's see how addicted we can get." I bit my lower lip, the promise of the night ahead filling me with a potent mix of excitement and anticipation. "You don't play fair, Logan," I murmured, feeling the fire of his gaze like a physical touch. He smirked, rolling onto his side to face me, his hand resting on my hip. "Life's not fair, Freya," he whispered, his voice low and rough, "but I can make it fun." I sighed, my body flush against his, my desire reigniting. "Fun? Is that what you're calling it now?" His lips crashed against mine in a searing kiss, his tongue tangling with mine in a fiery dance. His fingers slipped between my thighs, finding me still slick with desire. As he stroked, the sensation coursed through me, setting my nerves on fire. "Let go, Freya," he whispered against my lips, his voice a dark promise. "Scream my name." I shuddered, my body trembling as he pushed deeper. "Logan," I gasped, unable to resist the tidal wave of pleasure crashing through me. "Logan, yes." Hours of passion, of sweat and tangled limbs, of cries echoing through the night, and finally we lay in each other's arms, our breath steady, our hearts still racing. Logan's arms tightened around me, his lips brushing against my hair. "I'll never let you go," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. I sighed, letting the warmth of his body seep into me, our bond now unbreakable. "And I'll always be yours, Logan, your mate, your love, your life." He kissed the top of my head gently. "Please don't be mean to me tomorrow," I blurted out nervously, a slight quiver in my voice. Logan chuckled softly. No promises, Piccola, he teased, his lips curving into a mischievous smile. But, he continued, his tone suddenly more serious, my brother is coming from the east today. Thus, I blinked in surprise, my mind racing. I didn't know you had a brother, I murmured, my curiosity piqued. Logan shrugged, his eyes glinting with amusement. Now you know, Piccola, Logan said, his voice low and playful. Now, let's get some sleep, Freya. Logan murmured, his arms still wrapped around me, his body warm and comforting. We'll need our strength for tomorrow. I nodded, my eyelids already feeling heavy. I agree. Sleep sounds good. I woke up to the soft warmth of sunlight gently caressing my skin. Yawning and stretching, I looked around, only to realize Logan was no longer beside me. My heart sank for a second, but then I noticed a pair of small pajamas waiting for me on a nearby chair. How thoughtful, I whispered to myself, a small smile playing on my lips. Slipping out of bed, I put on the soft, fluffy garments, enjoying their warmth against my skin. Now, what could the day bring? After brushing my teeth and running a quick hand through my hair, I made my way to the parlor in search of Logan. Instead, I found myself face to face with a tall, muscular man with dark hair and piercing eyes. He smiled at me, his eyes flickering over my frame. Freya, I presume? He said, holding out his hand. Yes, I replied, returning his smile and shaking his hand. You must be Logan's brother. He chuckled. Guilty as charged. I'm Matt. Nice to finally meet you in person. Now, you know me? Of course I know you, Matt replied, his grin widening. Logan talks about you all the time. I raised an eyebrow, both intrigued and wary. Is that so? Matt shrugged, his eyes openly appraising me. He's proud of you, that's all. I had to come see for myself. I crossed my arms defensively, suddenly feeling exposed under his gaze. And what do you think? He shrugged again, his eyes meeting mine. You're certainly as gorgeous as he says, but I'll reserve judgment for now. Logan's voice cut through the air, cold and sharp, and my heart skipped a beat. Matt, he said, his gaze fixed on his brother. Matt turned, his eyes sparkling with mischief. Brother, he replied, a grin still playing on his lips. Logan ignored him, moving towards me and enveloping me in his arms. Piccola, he whispered, placing a gentle kiss on my forehead that made my heart flutter. For a moment, I forgot all about Matt's presence until he coughed, clearing his throat. Logan's voice was calm and controlled, his possessiveness evident in his tone. Matt, my mate, he said casually, as if to reinforce his claim over me. Matt's gaze lingered on me for a moment longer before he nodded in agreement. She's beautiful, he said, a hint of admiration in his voice. I know, Logan replied, his confidence unwavering as he pulled me onto his lap. I settled against him, his arms wrapping protectively around me. Freya's pav. The tension in the room was palpable, the weight of Matt's presence heavy and threatening. But Logan seemed unwavering, his hold on me a silent declaration of his ownership. So, Matt said, his tone deceptively light. Freya, is it? Tell me, what is it about my brother that makes you want to be his mate? I stiffened, sensing the challenge in his words, but Logan's hand on my shoulder was reassuring. Logan is strong and loyal, I said, my voice firm. He makes me feel safe. Matt's brow arched, a hint of mockery in his voice. Loyal, you say? He mumbled, ignoring Logan's growl of warning. Enough, Matt, Logan snapped, his voice resonating with authority. I'm your Alpha, remember? Yes, Alpha, Matt replied, a hint of amusement in his voice. He bowed mockingly before disappearing from the room, leaving Logan and I alone once more. Logan sighed, running his fingers through my hair. He's always like this, Freya. Don't let him get to you. I nodded, silently absorbing Logan's words, his protective embrace easing my nerves. He leaned in, his lips brushing against mine in a gentle, possessive kiss. Go to our room, Piccola, he whispered, his voice low and soft. I'll deal with Matt. You just rest and relax. I rose from his lap, giving him a small smile. Okay, Alpha, I replied playfully. I'll be waiting for you. He winked, a smile curling his lips. That you will. As I made my way to our room, I couldn't help but wonder about Matt's intentions. Logan had assured me that he was no threat, but something about him made me uneasy. I slipped into bed, closing my eyes and letting the events of the morning fade away. Before long, I drifted into sleep, the soft sound of my breathing filling the room. It was some time later when I awoke, a faint noise stirring me from my slumber. The door was open, and Logan was nowhere to be seen. Heart racing, I sat up, listening intently for any sign of danger. The room was silent, but the door was ajar, and Logan was nowhere to be seen. My heart raced as I scanned the room, but there was no sign of danger. Then my eyes fell on the small box sitting on the dresser. I approached it cautiously, a wave of uncertainty sweeping over me. The handwritten note was unmistakably Logan's, for my beautiful mate. With trembling fingers, I opened the box, and my eyes widened as I saw the contents: a flowy, summery sundress and a pair of lacy red panties. Holding the sundress in my hands, I felt a mixture of intrigue and apprehension. The gesture was thoughtful, but the red panties, combined with Logan's possessive behavior, made me wonder if he was sending me a message. I slipped out of bed and dressed, my skin tingling as the soft fabric of the dress caressed my body. The panties were a daring, passionate shade of red, contrasting sharply with the innocence of the sundress. As I gazed at myself in the mirror, I couldn't help but feel a little thrill at the thought of Logan seeing me in the outfit. I smoothed out the dress, feeling more confident with each passing second. Logan had chosen this for me, and that fact alone was enough to put some spring in my step. I wandered out of the room, making my way towards the kitchen. There was a scent of fresh coffee in the air, and I found Logan sitting at the table, engrossed in a newspaper. He glanced up as I entered, his expression shifting into a sly smile. "Well, hello, Piccola," he drawled, his eyes lingering on my figure. "You look daring." His gaze was intense, his voice rich with desire. "You're a vision in red, Freya," he murmured, standing up and walking towards me. "And I'm not just talking about the dress." My cheeks flushed as he reached out and traced a finger along my collarbone. "What's the occasion?" I asked, my voice a little breathless. Logan grinned, a mischievous twinkle in his eye. "Today, my mate, we're going to the beach," he declared, wrapping an arm around my waist and pulling me close. As we walked out of the house, I felt an unfamiliar thrill of anticipation. The day was warm, the sun bright and shining, and the gentle breeze ruffled my dress. Logan had arranged for a driver to take us to the beach, and as we settled into the back seat, his hand rested possessively on my thigh. "This beach is private, just for us," he whispered, leaning close. "I want you to feel comfortable." "That's sweet of you, Alpha," I murmured, my heart racing at the intimate touch. The ride to the beach was short, the car weaving through the forested roads until we arrived at a secluded cove. Logan led me onto the golden sand, our feet sinking into the warm grains. The ocean stretched before us, the waves gently lapping against the shore. A cluster of palm trees swayed in the breeze, offering a bit of shade. Logan spread out a soft blanket, gesturing for me to sit. I sat down beside him, the sun warming my skin as I glanced at Logan. There was an edge to his words that made me feel both excited and a little apprehensive. He leaned in, his eyes dark with desire. "Tell me, Piccola," he whispered, tracing a finger along my bare shoulder, "do you like wearing this dress for me?" I swallowed, feeling my skin tingle where he touched me. "Yes, Alpha," I replied, my voice low and breathy. "It makes me feel desired." His smile was wolfish. Logan's eyes danced with mischief as he leaned in. "I'm glad you like it," he murmured, his voice rich with desire, "but I think it would look even better off." I felt my cheeks flush as he untied the straps of my dress, his fingers grazing my skin. The fabric fell away, leaving me in just the lacy red panties. Logan held out a hand, beckoning me to join him in the water. "Come, Piccola," he whispered, a mischievous grin on his face. "Let's go for a swim." Freya's pav, the cool water lapped at our feet as we waded into the ocean. Logan wrapped an arm around my waist, his strong body pressed against mine. "Freya," he murmured, his lips grazing my ear, "are you sure you're ready for this? We can always wait." I shook my head, feeling bolder by the second. "No, Logan," I replied, a thrill running through me. "I want this." He smiled, his gaze intense. "Then hold on tight, Piccola," he whispered, his voice low and commanding. As we swam further into the ocean, I felt a surge of panic rise within me. Images of my stepmother's cruel face flashed in my mind, and I remembered the countless times she had used the water as her instrument of punishment. My heart raced, and I clung tighter to Logan, my grip tightening on his arm. "Alpha," I whispered, my voice trembling, "I'm scared." He pulled me closer, his voice gentle. "Freya, it's okay," he murmured, his eyes filled with understanding. "You're safe with me," Logan held me close, his strong arms wrapped protectively around me. "Shh, Piccola," he murmured, his lips brushing against my temple. "I won't let anything happen to you. You're my mate, and I'll always protect you." I leaned into him, letting his strength and warmth soothe my fears. "I'm sorry," I whispered, my voice small and vulnerable. The ocean scares me." Logan's eyes were filled with understanding. "You don't have to apologize, Freya," he said, his voice gentle but firm. I swallowed, the memories of my childhood flashing before my eyes. "My stepmother used to punish me," I said, my voice quiet. "If I disobeyed her, or if she was in a bad mood, she would drag me to the river and hold me underwater until I thought I would drown." Logan's expression hardened, his jaw tightening. "She did that to you?" he asked, his voice low and dangerous. I nodded, the pain of those memories still fresh. "She was cruel," I whispered. "And the water became a constant reminder of her cruelty," I finished, my voice quivering. "So I learned to hate it." Logan wrapped me tighter in his embrace, his lips pressing against my hair. "No more, Freya," he murmured, his voice soft but fierce. "No more fear, I promise." Logan's lips found mine in a gentle, reassuring kiss. "It's okay, Freya," he murmured, his gaze full of love and understanding. "I won't let anything hurt you ever again." Slowly, he eased me back into the water, his arms tight around me, his body shielding me from the waves. I could feel the fear start to melt away, replaced by a sense of security and safety. "Logan," I whispered, looking into his eyes. "Thank you. I'm not afraid anymore." Logan smiled, his eyes sparkling with affection. "I'm glad, Freya," he said, his voice warm and tender. "You deserve to feel safe and loved, always." Together, we waded back to the shore, hand in hand, the sun warm on our skin. On the soft blanket, a small meal had been laid out, filled with delicacies from the pack's kitchen. Logan gestured for me to sit, pulling out a chair for me. "A picnic by the ocean," he said, his voice light and playful. "Just what we needed." "I never knew you were such a romantic," I muttered, eyeing his bare chest with a smile. Logan chuckled, his eyes flashing with amusement. "I am not," he said, his voice filled with playful defiance. I laughed, feeling my heart flutter. Logan was really sweet to me at least, and I loved that. But a small part of me couldn't help but worry that he might wake up one day and decide to leave. As I leaned in to take a lick of the sweet yogurt, Logan's hand found mine, gently pulling it away. "Let me feed you," he murmured, his voice low and sensual. Before I could protest, he took the spoon and ran it across my breasts, leaving a trail of the creamy dessert. His tongue followed, tracing the sweet lines, his lips warm and soft against my skin. My breath caught in my throat, my body responding to his touch, desire burning in my veins. "Logan," I whispered, my voice thick with need. Logan looked up, his eyes dark with desire, the corners of his mouth turned up in a mischievous smile. "What is it, Piccola?" he whispered, his voice like honey. "That's not how you eat yogurt," I managed, my voice trembling with need. Logan laughed, his gaze never leaving mine. "Maybe not," he murmured, moving closer, his breath warm against my skin. "But it's definitely how I plan on eating you." My pulse raced as he leaned in, his lips brushing against mine. His lips were warm and soft, his tongue seeking entrance into my mouth. I moaned softly, surrendering to the kiss, the heat of our bodies mingling together. Logan's hands roamed my body, exploring the contours of my curves, his touch both firm and gentle. I arched into him, my need growing with each passing second. "Piccola," he murmured between kisses, his voice husky and deep. "I want to taste you. All of you." My pulse raced, my breath coming in short, shallow gasps. Just as our passion reached its peak, Logan's phone buzzed, breaking the spell between us. He tried to ignore it, but the call kept coming. With a frustrated sigh, he pulled away, reaching for his phone. "I'm sorry, Piccola," he said, his voice apologetic. "I need to take this." He walked a few steps away, his voice low and serious, his back turned to me. A few moments later, he returned, a look of concern on his face. "I'm sorry, Freya," he said, his voice tense. "It's a serious pack matter," he continued, his voice urgent. "We need to head back to the pack house immediately." My heart sank, our moment of intimacy forgotten in the face of this new urgency. "What's wrong?" I asked, my voice hushed with concern. "Shh, let's get going, princess." He grabbed me softly, Freya's pav. We packed our belongings and made our way back to the car. The drive back to the pack house was quiet, the tension palpable between us. As Logan drove, his jaw was set in a determined line, his focus on the road ahead. I could tell he was trying to keep his emotions in check, but I could sense the anger and concern simmering just below the surface. We reached the pack house without incident, but as we pulled into the driveway, I saw several of the pack's warriors gathered, their expressions grim. Logan turned to me, his gaze intense. "Go to your room," he said, his voice firm and commanding. "I need to meet with the pack, discuss our strategy. You'll be safe there." I hesitated, my heart still racing from our interrupted moment on the beach, but I could tell Logan was in no mood to argue. I nodded and headed to my room, the door closing behind me with a click. I paced the room, my nerves on edge. I couldn't help but wonder if the situation was as dangerous as Logan seemed to believe. Just as I was about to give in to despair, there was a knock at the door. I opened it, surprised to find Elena standing there, a playful smile on her face. "Hey there, mate," she said, a mischievous glint in her eye. "I heard about the situation with the rival pack. How are you holding up?" I laughed, the tension in my chest easing at the sight of her. "I'm doing okay," I said, giving her a quick hug. "But Logan's so serious about the whole thing. It's kind of scary." Elena waved her hand dismissively. "Men," she sighed. "They always want to make such a big deal out of everything. You worry too much, Freya. I'm sure Logan has it all under control." I laughed, shaking my head. "That's what I keep telling myself," I said, following Elena into the room and closing the door behind me. "But you know how Logan can be. He's so protective." "You're telling me?" Elena said with a grin. "It's like he thinks he's your personal bodyguard or something." Elena grinned, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "Speaking of protective, when are you going to give Logan some little alpha pups to look after?" she asked, wiggling her eyebrows suggestively. I blushed, my cheeks turning a bright shade of red. "Oh God, Elena," I groaned, hiding my face in my hands. "We're barely mated. Let's not get ahead of ourselves." Elena laughed, shaking her head. "I'm just teasing you, Piccola," she said, patting my shoulder reassuringly. I chuckled at Elena's playful teasing, but my smile faded as she brought up the nickname Logan always used for me. "Please, don't call me that," I mumbled, sitting down on my bed. "Logan calls me Piccola all the time, but it's just not me." Elena pouted, putting her hands on her hips. "Why don't you like it? It's cute. It's Italian for little one," she said, trying to persuade me. I rolled my eyes, fighting back a smile. "The word sounds so sexy when he says it." "You know I hate that nickname," I said, giving Elena a playful glare. She pouted, her hands on her hips. "But why?" She whined, sticking out her bottom lip. "It's cute. It's Italian for little one." I rolled my eyes, trying to fight back a smile. "Yeah, and I'm not little," I retorted, "and it just sounds silly when he says it." Elena laughed, a mischievous twinkle in her eye. Elena bowed respectfully to Logan as he entered the room, giving me a playful wink as she passed. "I'm leaving you two lovebirds alone," she said, giving me a conspiratorial smile as she left the room, shutting the door behind her. Logan sat down on the bed next to me, his face serious. "I have news," he said, reaching for my hand. "The rival pack is serious about claiming our territory. I'm going to have to leave for a few days to handle the situation." I felt a twinge of panic in my chest. "A few days?" Logan nodded, his expression grave. "I know this isn't what you want to hear," he said, his thumb brushing against my hand in a soothing gesture. "But I can't risk the pack's safety. I have to do this, Freya." I felt tears welling in my eyes, and I blinked them back furiously. "But what if something happens to you?" I asked, my voice quivering. "I can't lose you, Logan." He pulled me into his arms, his embrace warm and comforting. "Nothing will happen to me," he said, his voice firm. "Okay, Mr. Tough Guy, you stay safe." Logan's eyes softened, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. "Tough guy, huh?" he teased, his voice warm and playful. "I'll be back before you know it." He pulled me closer, our bodies pressed together. I could feel his heart beating fast against my chest as his lips found mine. The kiss was tender and passionate, a perfect mix of sweetness and heat. I could taste his love for me in every touch, every breath. When we finally broke apart, his gaze was intense, his eyes dark with emotion. "Stay safe, my mate," he whispered. Logan kissed me once more before reluctantly pulling away. "I'll be back before you know it," he promised, his voice husky. "I'll text you as soon as I can, I promise." I nodded, my heart heavy with worry as I watched him leave the room. It felt like I was holding my breath, waiting for the moment when I'd hear from him again. As the door closed behind him, I sank onto the bed, my mind racing with thoughts of Logan and the danger he was facing. I couldn't help but hope and pray that he'd return to me soon. Time seemed to stretch out in an endless void as I waited for news from Logan. Eventually, I succumbed to the pull of sleep, my dreams a jumble of memories and fears. I startled awake with a jolt as a knock sounded on the door. Rubbing the sleep from my eyes, I stumbled to the door and swung it open, only to be met with a familiar face. "Matt?" Freya's pav. "Matt?" I blurted, my eyes widening in surprise. "What are you doing here?" He smiled, his eyes twinkling mischievously. "Hey, Freya," Matt said, a playful smirk on his lips. "I thought I'd come and visit my old friend. It's been a while since I've seen you." I sighed, my brow furrowing with concern. "Matt, what are you really doing here?" I asked, stepping aside to let him in. "Logan's not here." He followed me into the room, his shoulders slumping. "I know," he said, a troubled look crossing his face. "That's kind of why I'm here." My heart started to pound. I narrowed my eyes, taking in the sight of Matt's injured hand. "What happened to your hand?" I asked, stepping forward to inspect it. "It's bleeding." He winced as I gently probed his wound. "I was trying to break up a fight between two of the pack's younger members," he said, his voice tense. "One of them got a lucky shot in." I grabbed a clean towel from the bathroom, wrapping it around his hand to slow the bleeding. "Why didn't you go to the pack's healers?" I asked, my voice edged with worry. Matt's eyes flicked to his injured hand, a look of pain and uncertainty crossing his face. "Freya," he said, his voice strained. "I know you're with Logan, but right now I'm in need of your help. Can you heal me?" I sighed, my resolve wavering. Matt and I had been friends once, and I couldn't just turn him away in his time of need. "Of course," I said, gesturing for him to sit down. "Let's get that hand cleaned up and healed." Matt sat on the edge of the bed, a look of relief flooding his features. "Thanks, Freya," he said, his voice gruff with gratitude. As I mixed the herbs, preparing the poultice to heal his wound, I could feel Matt's eyes on me. I glanced up, meeting his gaze, a flush creeping up my cheeks. "You're really beautiful, you know," he murmured, a playful grin tugging at the corners of his mouth. "I can see why my brother is so smitten. I need my woman to be as beautiful as you." My cheeks burned at his compliment, my hands faltering in their task. "Matt," I said, giving him a warning look. "You shouldn't say things like that." He chuckled, shaking his head. "Hey, I'm just telling the truth," he said, holding up his hands in a playful gesture of innocence. "Logan's a lucky man to have you as his mate." I sighed, turning my attention back to the poultice. "That may be," I murmured, trying to hide my smile. As I worked on cleaning and treating Matt's wound, I tried to ignore the way his eyes lingered on me, but it was impossible to completely block out his presence, and I could feel my pulse quickening as he watched me. "So, Freya," he began, his voice casual and light, "how are you finding life in the pack?" I hesitated, unsure how to answer. "It's different," I said, keeping my eyes on my task. "There's a lot to learn, but I'm managing." Matt chuckled, the sound almost playful, but I could sense an edge to his words. "From a breeder to a Luna, huh? Quite the leap." I forced a smile, trying to maintain my composure. "Yes, quite the leap," I agreed, my voice tight. Matt's expression grew serious, his eyes lingering on my face. "Logan mentioned that you had difficulties with the pregnancy." He hesitated as if unsure of how to continue. "I'm sorry." My heart twisted at the memory of the miscarriage. It was hard," I finished, my voice barely above a whisper. "We lost the pup early on." Matt's expression softened, his hand reaching out to cover mine. "I'm sorry, Freya," he murmured. "That must have been devastating." I nodded, my throat tight with emotion. "It was." "All done," I said, stepping away from the bed to dispose of the used poultice. Matt's eyes followed my movements, a smoldering heat in his gaze that made me uncomfortable. "Thanks, Freya," he said, his voice low and dangerous. Before I could react, he pulled me by the hand, and I lost my footing, falling on top of him on the bed. My heart raced as I struggled to right myself, but Matt's grip on my wrist tightened, pinning me in place. "Let go of me, Matt," I protested, my voice edged with panic. But Matt's grip only tightened, his eyes burning with a dangerous intensity. "Oh, come on, Freya," he purred, his voice a low rumble. "You can't tell me you've never been curious about what it would be like to have two brothers at once." Logan's told me about how much he loves sharing his women with me. I gasped, my heart hammering in my chest. "Logan would never want to share me with another man," I stated firmly. "Whatever you guys did with other women, I am not like them. I am his mate, and he would never want to share me with anyone else." I glared at Matt, my expression fierce and determined. I wasn't going to let him manipulate me, no matter how hard he tried. I was Logan's mate, and I would remain faithful to him, no matter what. Matt's hand slid around my waist, his touch sending a shiver of revulsion through my body. "Stop it," I hissed, pushing him away. Matt grabbed me roughly, pulling me closer to him before releasing me with a sneer. "Don't forget, Freya," he said as he turned to leave. "Logan might be your mate, but he's still a wolf, and wolves like to share." My heart raced as I watched him disappear out of the room. As the door closed behind Matt, I sank back onto the bed, my body trembling with fear and disgust. What had just happened? Why had Matt acted that way? Was there any truth to what he had said about Logan? I shook my head, trying to clear the thoughts from my mind. I couldn't let Matt's words poison my relationship with Logan. He loved me, and he would never hurt me. Still, the seed of doubt had been planted, and as I fell into a restless sleep, I couldn't help but wonder what the future held for me and Logan. Freya's POV. I woke up with a start to a soft knock on the door. A maid entered the room and informed me that Matt wanted me to join him for breakfast in his chambers. My stomach knotted at the thought of seeing him after last night's incident. I didn't want to spend more time with him, but I knew I couldn't refuse. Refusing Matt could cause issues. I shook my head. "No, thank you," I said, my voice firm. The maid nodded and left, shutting the door behind her. I rose from the bed and walked into my attached bathroom. With a deep breath, I began to undress, my body tensing as each layer of clothing fell to the floor. Stepping into the shower, I let the hot water cascade over my body, my muscles relaxing as the steam filled the room. The heat enveloped me, washing away the worries and fears that had been plaguing me since Matt's arrival. I truly miss Logan, and I hope he is safe. So much has happened since I came to this pack, and it's been overwhelming. From being a breeder to becoming Luna, it's a lot to take in. I can't wait to complete the full mating ritual with Logan, but first I need to find a way to deal with Matt. His behavior was strange and unsettling last night. How could my mate's brother be hitting on me? It's not only inappropriate, but also disrespectful to Logan. I can't imagine why Matt would act that way, and it's making me uncomfortable. I need to find a way to make him understand that his behavior is not acceptable and he needs to stop. After finishing my shower, I wrapped a towel around myself and stepped out of the bathroom. I selected a simple yet elegant outfit, carefully combing my hair and applying light makeup. As I looked in the mirror, I reminded myself that I was the Luna of this pack, and I needed to act with dignity and grace. No matter what Matt or anyone else threw at me, I would not let them get the better of me. I took a deep breath, straightened my spine, and left the room, determined to face whatever the day had in store for me. As I opened the door to my room, I was immediately met with Matt's imposing presence. Before I could even react, he grabbed my arm, pulling me back into the room and shutting the door behind us. "Where do you think you're going?" he growled, his grip tightening around my wrist. I struggled against his grasp, my heart pounding in my chest. "Let go of me, Matt," I demanded, trying to maintain my composure. "You're hurting me." He leaned in close, his breath hot against my skin. "I'm not hurting you," he whispered, his voice low and menacing. "Not yet, anyway." I shuddered, fear crawling up my spine. "What do you want, Matt?" I asked, trying to sound brave despite the terror that gripped my heart. He laughed, a cruel sound that sent chills down my body. "I want you to remember your place, Freya," he said, his voice filled with venom. "You might be Luna, but you're still just a breeder at heart." "You're crossing a line, Matt," I growled, my voice low and dangerous. "I belong to Logan, and he won't be happy if he finds out about this." Matt laughed, his chuckle filled with malice. "I don't care what Logan thinks. He's too focused on the wrong rivalry to do anything about it. And besides, you're not his anymore. You're mine now." I froze, my heart racing with fear. "You can't have me," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I will never belong to you." "Oh, you will, Freya?" he hissed, his eyes gleaming with malevolence. "When I take over, I will make you my Luna, and you will be mine, body and soul." His words ignited a rage in me that I couldn't contain. How dare he presume to think that I would ever be his, that I would ever belong to anyone but Logan? I felt my wolf stir within me, her fury matching my own. "You'll never be Alpha," I growled, my voice shaking with anger, "and I am going to let Logan know your plan to betray him." I tried to push past Matt, intent on escaping his clutches, but he was too fast, his hand wrapping around my arm and hoisting me up with ease. "Kiss me, Freya," he commanded, his voice low and dangerous. I turned my face away, my heart hammering in my chest. "Never," I spat, my voice trembling with anger. Matt's eyes narrowed, his face contorting into a snarl. Without warning, he threw me against the wall, my body slamming into the hard surface with a sickening thud. Dazed and disoriented, I slumped to the floor, my breath coming in ragged gasps. Matt loomed over me, his shadow casting a dark veil over my body. "Remember this, Freya," he growled, his voice seething with rage. "You belong to me now, and when I'm Alpha, you'll do as I say, or else." With those parting words, Matt stormed out of the room, leaving me trembling alone. I clutched my arm, tears welling in my eyes as I wondered what the future held for me in this twisted pack. The phone vibrated against my thigh, its ringtone piercing the silence of the room. Wiping away the tears that stained my cheeks, I pulled the phone from my pocket, the name Logan flashing on the screen. "Logan," I whispered, my voice breaking. "Freya!" His voice boomed through the line, filled with concern. "Are you all right?" Yes, I'm all right. It was just something silly that upset me. Nothing to worry about," I assured him, avoiding mentioning Matt's name. "I promise, I'm fine." Logan seemed to sense that I was still holding back, but he let the matter drop. "If you say so, Freya," Logan said, his voice still tinged with concern. "Just promise me that you'll stay safe while I'm away. And if anything happens, anything at all, I want you to call me. Understand?" "Of course, Logan," I replied, feeling a small flutter of warmth in my heart at his concern. "I'll be fine. You don't need to worry about me." "That's my girl," Logan said with a small chuckle. "Freya's Pav." "Logan, I miss you," I whispered, a surge of longing washing over me. "Everything here feels off. Like something's not right." "I miss you too, Freya," Logan replied, his voice heavy with longing. "But I'll be home soon. Just hang in there a little longer, all right? I need you to be strong for me." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "I will, Logan, I promise." After hanging up with Logan, I leaned against the wall, my mind whirling. Everything in this pack felt off-kilter, like a delicate balance that was about to tip over at any moment. But what could I do? Matt had made it clear that he was willing to do whatever it took to make me his, and without Logan here to protect me, I felt more vulnerable than ever. Determined to keep the peace between Logan and Matt, I resolved to keep Logan in the dark about Matt's behavior, no matter how difficult it might be. After all, Matt was still Logan's brother, and I couldn't bear to be the cause of conflict within the pack. But how long could I keep this charade going? I knew that eventually Matt would slip up, and Logan would learn the truth. Unable to shake the sense of unease that had settled over me, I decided that a run in the woods might help clear my head. After sunset, I slipped out of the pack house, making sure to avoid any lingering eyes. The forest was eerily quiet, the moonlight casting long shadows across the ground. As I shifted into my wolf form, I felt a sense of freedom wash over me, my muscles flexing and stretching as I raced through the underbrush. With the wind rushing through my fur, I felt more alive than I had in weeks. I followed the familiar scent trails, my nose guiding me deeper into the forest, away from the pack house and the drama that waited there. As I ran, I let my thoughts drift, the world around me blurring into a haze of colors and sounds. But just as I began to relax into the run, a sudden sound snapped me back to attention. It was a low, threatening growl, the kind that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. Recognition hit me like a brick. Matt. He had been following me, tracking me through the forest like a hunter stalking its prey. Instinctively, I froze, my muscles tensing as I prepared for the inevitable confrontation. But Matt didn't make a move. Instead, he simply watched me, his amber eyes flashing with a wild intensity that sent chills down my spine. Freya, he growled, his voice low and dangerous. Why do you run from me? I'm not running from you, I snapped, letting my wolf's fierce nature rise to the surface. I'm running to clear my head. Then run with me, Matt replied, his voice silky and seductive. We could be free together, Freya. We could leave this pack and start our own. Imagine it, just the two of us running wild, free from the shackles of Logan's rule. I bristled at the suggestion, my hackles rising in defense. You're insane, I snarled. With a feral snarl, Matt launched himself towards me, his powerful muscles propelling him through the underbrush. But I was faster, my smaller size giving me an advantage in the dense forest. I darted between trees, my paws barely touching the ground as I weaved through the forest, the branches slapping against my fur like whips. Behind me, I could hear Matt's growls growing more desperate, his anger fueling his pursuit. But I wasn't going to let him catch me. I would outrun him, outsmart him, whatever it took to keep myself safe. Just as I thought I might be able to escape, I felt a sudden weight crash into my side, sending me tumbling to the ground in a tangle of limbs and fur. Gotcha, Matt growled, his hot breath against my ear sending shivers down my spine. I thrashed beneath him, snarling and snapping as I tried to break free from his hold. But he was too strong, his massive body pinning me to the ground with an iron grip. Calm down, he whispered, his voice dripping with false sweetness. You're only making this harder for yourself, Matt purred, his fur tickling my flank as he leaned closer. Submit to me now, and I promise you won't regret it. I'll take care of you, Freya. I'll give you everything you want, everything you deserve, I growled, baring my teeth in defiance. I'll never submit to you, Matt. I belong to Logan, and I always will. Matt chuckled, a low, predatory sound that sent chills through my body. Oh, this must be love at first sight, he chuckled, his amber eyes glittering with humor. Or maybe it's lust. Hard to tell with wolves. As I shifted back into my human form, wrapping the towel around my bare body, I glared at Matt with burning defiance. There's no love here, Matt, just hate. You need to accept that. Hate and love are two sides of the same coin, he replied, his voice a low purr. And you're so intoxicating, Freya. Sometimes I wonder why my brother had to have all the fine things in the world, he added. Matt's eyes flashed with cruelty as he leaned in close, his voice dripping with venom. Remember your place, Freya. You're nothing but a breeder, a thing to be bought and sold like a piece of meat. Don't forget that Logan only keeps you because you're useful to him. Without warning, he backhanded me across the face, the force of his blow sending me reeling. I fell to the ground, my hand flying to my nose as blood began to trickle down my face. Dazed and gasping for breath, I looked up at Matt with a mixture of fear and defiance. You're pathetic, Matt, I spat, my voice shaking with rage. You'll never be Alpha, and when Logan finds out what you've done... Logan won't find out, Matt snarled, looming over me. Because if you tell him, I'll make sure that you regret it. I'll make sure that you're too afraid to speak a word against me. His threat hung in the air like a dark cloud, his amber eyes gleaming with madness, and just like that, Matt was gone, disappearing into the shadows of the forest like a phantom. I lay there for a moment, trying to catch my breath and process what had just happened. My face throbbed with pain, my nose still bleeding from his blow. But the pain in my heart was even greater, the weight of his words pressing down on me like an iron fist. I knew that I couldn't let Matt get away with this. I had to warn Logan. Freya's pav. Days passed, each one blurring into the next in a haze of pain and fear. Every day, Matt would find a way to corner me, to torment me with his words and his hands, and every day, I would fight back, steeling myself against his advances. But it wasn't enough. He was getting bolder, more aggressive, more determined to break my will. And with each passing day, I could feel myself weakening, my defenses crumbling under the weight of his brutality. I knew that I couldn't keep this up forever. Sooner or later, Matt would succeed in breaking me. The days dragged by like an eternity, each one filled with terror and pain. Matt's attacks grew more frequent, more vicious, more desperate, and despite my best efforts to hide my injuries, I knew that he was leaving his mark on me, both physically and emotionally. Logan had been gone for 2 weeks now, and with each passing day, I felt myself slipping further away from the strong, defiant Omega Wad once was. Matt had succeeded in stripping me of my dignity, my pride, my sense of self. I sat in my room, the light of the setting sun casting a warm glow over the pages of my book. It was a quiet moment of peace, a brief respite from the horrors that had become my life. Then, without warning, the door to my room opened, a sliver of light cutting through the darkness like a knife. My heart leaped into my throat as I turned, expecting to see Matt's twisted grin. But it wasn't Matt. It was Logan. My breath caught in my throat as I watched him step into the room, his eyes flickering over me with concern. Without thinking, I leapt to my feet and threw myself into Logan's arms, clinging to him as if he were a lifeline in a raging sea. He wrapped his arms around me, holding me tight as I buried my face against his chest, my body shaking with silent sobs. "Freya," he whispered, his voice full of concern. "What's wrong? What happened?" But I couldn't speak, couldn't find the words to tell him what Matt had done. All I could do was hold on to him, as if he were the only thing keeping me from falling apart. I pulled back, wiping away my tears with the back of my hand. "Logan, I'm so glad you're back," I lied, my voice thick with emotion. He searched my face, as if looking for something hidden behind my mask of calm. But I couldn't let him see the truth, couldn't let him see the pain and fear that had taken root inside me. So I kissed him, pressing my lips against his with a desperate ferocity. And for a moment, I let myself believe that everything was going to be okay. As Logan's arms closed around me, his lips meeting mine in a gentle, tender kiss, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. With him here, I was safe. With him here, I was no longer alone in my fight against Matt's brutality. "I missed you so much," he whispered, his voice low and intimate. "You don't know how much I've been thinking about you, Freya, about us." My heart fluttered at his words, a small spark of hope igniting within me. Maybe, just maybe, things would be different now. For a while, Logan and I lost ourselves in each other's presence. He told me about his pack trip, regaling me with tales of his adventures, while I listened with rapt attention, my mind drifting back to a time when my life was simple and carefree. But as the evening wore on, a shadow of doubt began to creep into my thoughts. I knew that Logan could protect me, but for how long? What if Matt decided to strike again, and this time he didn't stop? Matt appeared in the room, his demeanor calculated and suave. "Hey, brother," he greeted Logan, his voice smooth and friendly. "Just wanted to let you know I'm heading out for a bit. Got some pack business to attend to." He shot me a glance that was almost imperceptible, but I felt it like a chill down my spine. It was a silent warning, a reminder that he still held all the power in this situation. Logan nodded, oblivious to the tension that hung heavy in the air. "Sounds good, Matt. Just be careful out there, all right?" As Matt's footsteps receded down the hallway, Logan's gaze shifted to me. The friendly smile he'd worn for his brother melted away, replaced by a dark, concerned frown. "Freya, I can't stand lies." Logan's voice was stern, his eyes piercing into mine as he spoke. "Something happened while I was away, didn't it? You're different." I shifted uncomfortably under his intense scrutiny, my mind racing for a plausible explanation that wouldn't put him in Matt's crosshairs. "It's just mood swings," I stammered, the lie feeling clunky and unnatural on my tongue. "You know how it is, being a woman and all, hormones and stuff." But Logan's skepticism didn't waver, his gaze fixed on me like a hound scenting prey. "Freya," he said, his voice soft but insistent, "you can trust me. Whatever's going on, I want to help you. I can't do that if you don't tell me the truth." I leaned in, pressing my lips against Logan's in a desperate attempt to distract him. "You're worrying too much," I whispered, my hands sliding up his chest as I sought to divert his attention. For a moment, Logan seemed to lose himself in the kiss, his body tensing beneath my touch, but then he pulled away, his eyes heavy with concern. "Freya," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Logan's words hung in the air like a sword of Damocles, the threat of his wrath dangling above my head. "If I find out in my own what the problem is," he said, his voice low and dangerous, "my reaction will be 20 times worse." With a final, lingering kiss to my forehead, he turned and left the room, his footsteps echoing down the hallway. I collapsed onto the bed, the weight of my secrets pressing down on me like a leaden blanket. I knew that I had to tell Logan the truth, but the fear of Matt's retaliation kept my lips sealed. Logan is way more stronger than Matt, but Matt seems more corny. Freya's Pav. At the breakfast table, Lucia bounded into the room, her face beaming with joy at Logan's return. "Logan," she exclaimed, hurrying over to his seat. "I've missed you so much." "Lucia," Logan said, his voice measured and cold, his eyes never leaving his plate. "Leave. Now." The sudden dismissal sent shockwaves through the room, the air thick with tension and disbelief. Lucia's face fell, her eyes wide with hurt and confusion. Without another word, she turned and fled the room, the sound of her retreating footsteps leaving an eerie silence in their wake. Xavier couldn't contain his amusement, a small chuckle escaping his lips as he watched Logan's response to Lucia. Logan's eyes snapped, his brow furrowed in annoyance. "Something funny, Xavier?" he growled, his tone dripping with barely concealed rage. Xavier's smile faltered, his eyes darting to the side in an attempt to avoid Logan's piercing gaze. "Nothing, Alpha," he said quickly, bowing his head in a show of respect. I bit my lip, my mind swirling with a mix of jealousy and insecurity as Logan's gaze lingered on Lucia's retreating form. It was as if I could feel the bond between them, an invisible thread that tied them together in a way that I couldn't fathom. And Logan, for his part, seemed to sense my turmoil. His gaze shifted back to me, his expression softening slightly as he reached across the table and took my hand in his. "Are you all right, Freya?" he asked, concern lacing his voice. Logan's gaze lingered on me, his eyes searching mine for a moment longer before he cleared his throat and addressed the room. "Everyone, leave," he said, his voice authoritative and brooking no argument, except for Freya. The little pack members looked at one another in confusion and surprise, but they didn't dare disobey their Alpha's command. Within moments, the dining room was empty, save for Logan and myself, the door clicking shut behind the last of them as they filed out. "Now," Logan said, his gaze fixed on me as he leaned back in his chair. Logan gestured for me to join him, patting his lap invitingly. "Come here," he said, his voice a low purr. I hesitated for a moment, but eventually complied, sinking into his lap and resting my head against his chest. His arms encircled me, holding me tightly against him as he gently ran his fingers through my hair. "Jealousy doesn't look good on you, Freya," he said softly, his lips brushing against my ear. I couldn't help but scoff at his comment. "You'd literally kill my ex if I had one walking around under the same roof as you," I stated, trying to hide the shiver that ran down my spine at the thought of it. Logan's smile turned sharp, his eyes gleaming with a dangerous edge. "You have an ex?" he asked, his tone playful but edged with a hint of menace. My heart skipped a beat as I realized my mistake. "No, I was just saying," I stammered, trying to backpedal. "I don't have an ex." Logan chuckled, the sound low and rich in the quiet room. "Freya," he said, his voice still laced with amusement, "you're a terrible liar. But that's okay. I have ways of getting the truth out of you." His hand trailed down my slightly tracing the shape of my back. "Tell me, Freya," he murmured, his breath warm against my ear. "Who is it that you're jealous of? Is it Lucia, or is it someone else?" The admission tumbled out of me like a confession, my voice trembling with emotion. "It's Lucia," I whispered, my eyes burning with unshed tears. "I don't like her, Logan. She's caused me so much pain and loss." Logan's brow furrowed, his gaze searching mine. "Pain and loss?" he repeated, his tone softer now. "What do you mean, Freya? What has Lucia done to you?" I swallowed hard, my throat tightening with the weight of my words. The words caught in my throat, the memory of my lost child flooding through me like a torrent. I couldn't bring myself to tell Logan the truth, not yet, so instead, I summoned all the strength I had left and forced myself to lie. "She's just a bully," I said, my voice quivering with the effort to remain composed. "But I can handle her. I'm not weak, Logan. You don't have to worry about me." Logan's gaze remained fixed on me, his eyes searching for any hint of dishonesty. "Do you want me to kill her? Painful or slow?" Logan's question stunned me, the casual way he spoke of murder sending a shiver of horror through my body. "Logan," I exclaimed, my eyes wide with shock. "You're not killing anyone, I mean it." Logan simply shrugged, his expression bored and nonchalant. "Why not?" he asked, tilting his head to the side as he considered my words. "She's caused you pain, Freya. If she's a threat to you, then I'll deal with her. It's as simple as that." "I thought she meant a lot to you," I said, my voice cracking slightly as I forced the words out. "I mean, she's your childhood friend and lover, right?" Logan's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise, but he recovered quickly. "She means nothing to me," he stated, his tone unequivocal. "So why do you keep her around?" I persisted, my heart aching with jealousy and hurt. "I don't know, I just do," he said, his voice almost dismissive. The words escaped my lips before I could stop them, my anger and insecurity getting the better of me. "Maybe you keep her around for sex," I blurted out, the accusation hanging in the air like a poisonous cloud. I immediately regretted my outburst, my heart pounding in my chest as I awaited Logan's reaction. But to my surprise, he merely smiled, his fingers gently cupping my face. "True, but not with any more," he murmured, his voice low and soothing. "Lucia means nothing to me, Freya. You're the only one for me, Piccola." Logan whispered, the nickname rolling off his tongue with a tenderness that made my heart flutter. "I don't want anyone else. Not Lucia, not anyone. Just you." His words filled me with a warmth that I couldn't deny, a sense of belonging and security that I'd longed for since I first arrived at his pack. But I couldn't quite let go of my fears, the thought of Lucia still lingering like a thorn in my side. Logan's POV. Holding Freya close, I could feel the trust she was placing in me, her body molding to mine like a missing puzzle piece. I knew that I had to make good on my promise to her, to keep her safe from harm, even if it meant dealing with Lucia once and for all. As I cradled Freya in my arms, my mind raced with plans and schemes, ways to protect her without drawing too much attention. Lucia was a wild card, unpredictable and volatile, but I was confident in my ability to handle her. I had been doing it for ages, after all. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off with Freya, a knot in my gut that grew tighter by the day. Her odd behavior was a red flag that I couldn't ignore, no matter how much she tried to downplay it. Confrontation was inevitable. "Inform my mate that I want to see her," I instructed, the maid bowing her way out of my office. It was time to put an end to this mystery and get to the bottom of Freya's strange behavior. Like a gust of wind, the door swung open, revealing Freya. A small smile tugged at her lips as she walked towards me, a feigned air of innocence in her gait. "Piccola," I called, patting my lap. "Come here." Obligingly, she sat upon my lap, her warmth palpable even through our clothing. Leaning into my neck, Freya appeared weary. "Tired?" I asked, searching her face for answers. She shook her head with a tired sigh. "Couldn't sleep last night." "Why?" I probed, sensing her discomfort. She tensed up, giving away her unease. "Nothing. Just a normal sleepless night," she replied, her voice reflecting the turmoil inside her. It was painfully clear that she was not being entirely honest. "Don't lie to me," I whispered, my voice razor-sharp. Freya opened her mouth to respond, but I silenced her with a stern finger against her lips. "You are so obvious when you lie, Piccola, and you know how much I hate lies." Her eyes widened with concern as my expression turned icy. "Logan, I'm not lying," she insisted, her frown deepening. "Freya," I pressed, my voice laced with disappointment. She averted her gaze and bit her lip, trying to hide the guilt written on her face. "I'm not lying," she repeated, desperation creeping into her voice. "Please, Logan, you have to believe me." I cupped her chin, forcing her to meet my gaze. "I want to believe you, Freya, but something is off, and I can't ignore it." Her shoulders slumped, and her gaze dropped to her lap. "Logan, I swear I'm not hiding anything. I was just having a bad night. That's all." The urge to believe her was strong, but my instinct screamed otherwise. "Freya, please. Please, Logan, just trust me," Freya pleaded, but I could sense her desperation mounting. She tried to stand up, but I yanked her back, holding her firmly in my lap, my face hardened, my eyes narrowing. "What has been bothering you? What?" My voice was a low growl, menace seeping into my words. "And why do I smell him all over you?" My voice dropped, but the accusation was clear. "Nothing, okay," she cried, her eyes wild with fear. "Freya," I growled, my wolf bristling within me. "Tell me the truth, now." But she remained silent, her eyes fixed on the floor, her fingers clenching and unclenching in her lap. "Piccola," I said, trying a softer approach. "You know I love you. You know I only want what's best for you. Please, just talk to me." My words seemed to fall on deaf ears. Freya stayed quiet, her expression unreadable, her mind closed off from me. With a growl, I seized her chin, my grip tight enough to make her wince. "Look at me," I commanded. Reluctantly, Freya raised her eyes to meet mine. The defiance there was clear, but so was the fear. Without another word, I claimed her lips in a fierce, possessive kiss. She gasped, but I didn't relent. This was no gentle embrace. This was a battle for the truth, a battle for her loyalty. As our lips collided, a primal instinct took hold, a force beyond words. The kiss deepened, our tongues tangling, our bodies pressed together. Freya's lips trembled under mine, but she didn't resist. I pulled away, gasping for breath, my eyes fierce and my wolf baring its teeth. "Tell me the truth, Freya. Tell me what's going on with you and Matt. Now." She flinched as if my words were a slap, but she remained silent, her eyes darting away from mine. "Piccola," I growled. "I can smell his scent on you." "Logan," she sobbed, tears streaming down her cheeks. "It's Matt. He's been—" She trailed off, unable to utter the words. My chest tightened, my wolf snarling in my mind. "He's been what?" I demanded, my voice a low, dangerous rumble. "He's been touching me. He's been trying to, she whispered, a broken cry escaping her lips. "He's been molesting you?" I finished for her, rage surging through my veins. Without another word, I hauled Freya into my arms, lifting her effortlessly. "We're going to end this now," I growled, my jaw clenched in fury. "Logan, no!" Freya protested, her voice shaking. "Please don't. He's your brother." "Well, watch me murder him." "You're crazy, Logan," Freya protested, but I silenced her with a fierce look. "Where did he touch you? What did he do?" My voice was a low, lethal growl, rage coursing through my veins. Freya hesitated, her eyes glistening with fresh tears. But she slowly lifted the sleeve of her top, revealing a patchwork of fresh and fading bruises marring her delicate skin. My vision turned red, my wolf howling in my mind. "He bruised you?" I hissed, my hands curling into fists at my sides. Freya flinched, nodding wordlessly. He said if I told anyone he'd hurt me worse," she whispered. "He said he'd make sure you wouldn't believe me. He said I was his now." Every syllable was like a knife to my heart, each revelation only fanning the flames of my fury. I felt my wolf pressing against my skin, aching to be released to make Matt pay for his cruelty. But I had to stay in control, for Freya's sake. The gentle knock on the door sent a jolt of electricity through me. "Who's there?" I growled, my voice dripping with menace. "It's Matt," came the reply, his voice uncharacteristically timid. I could feel Freya trembling against me, but I didn't move. "Come in," I said, my voice a low, deadly whisper. The door creaked open, and Matt stepped into the room, his eyes widening in shock as he took in the scene before him. Freya's pav. My mind was still racing to catch up with the sudden turn of events when Matt was launched through the door with a resounding crash. Logan's rage was palpable, his eyes turning pitch black as he hurled Matt across the room like a rag doll. Matt landed with a sickening thud, fear etched on his face as he stared up at Logan. The silence in the room was deafening, punctuated only by Matt's labored breathing and my own pounding heart. "Logan!" I cried out, sensing his inner wolf's barely contained fury. He snarled, his teeth bared as he hauled Matt to his feet, his eyes blazing with a murderous rage. "How dare you touch my woman?" he growled, his voice low and deadly. Matt cowered before him, quivering with fear, as Logan hurled him into the wall with a vicious force. The sickening impact sent a tremor through the room, and Matt slumped to the ground in a dazed heap. The tension in the air was shattered by Xavier's urgent footsteps thundering down the hall. "Alpha!" he called out, his eyes widening as he took in the carnage before him. Matt, struggling to his feet, spat out a venomous retort. "Fuck you, Logan," he sneered. "I thought you liked sharing your women, huh?" His cruel laughter sent a chill through my veins as Logan snarled, pinning him to the ground with a ruthless force. Logan's face twisted with rage as he dug his claws deeper into Matt's skin. His eyes gleamed like polished obsidian, his fangs bared in a chilling display of dominance. "You're going to regret that, Matt," he growled, his voice laced with barely restrained violence. "I might have shared some things with you, but Freya's not one of them. She is my mate." Matt's laughter died in his throat as the blood drained from his face. "Wait, Logan," he pleaded, his voice now laced with desperation. "We can talk about this." As Logan's icy grip on Matt tightened, I tugged at his shoulder, my voice quavering with fear and concern. "Logan, please. That's enough," I begged, my eyes pleading with him to stop. He froze, the murderous rage in his eyes wavering for a brief moment before he whirled around, his fury now aimed at me. "Freya, get away from him," he growled, his jaw clenched with anger. I shuddered at the coldness in his voice, but I refused to back down. Logan's breathing was labored, each exhale a guttural rumble that echoed through the hall. Despite my fear, I held my ground, refusing to let him hurt Matt any further. "Please, Logan," I whispered, my voice shaking with emotion. "Don't do this. He's not worth it." Logan's eyes blazed with unbridled rage, but something shifted in his expression as he gazed into my pleading eyes. After a long, tense moment, he finally relented, turning away from me to face Xavier. "Lock him up in the cell," Logan commanded, his voice still tinged with anger but tempered with a hint of resignation. Xavier nodded and moved to seize Matt, but I took a hesitant step backwards, my nerves frayed from the confrontation. Logan's eyes followed me as I retreated, but he made no move to stop me. I turned away, taking a deep breath as I walked down the hallway, seeking refuge from the chaos. Logan let me go, his gaze lingering on my retreating form as I disappeared from his sight. I fled from the chaos, seeking solace in the peaceful gardens outside the pack house. As I paced the serene pathways, my mind replayed the harrowing events of the day, my thoughts clouded with worry and fear. When I finally returned to the pack house, my heart raced as I approached the large meeting room, its heavy doors closed to all but those deemed worthy. The voices within were hushed, but the power in each word was palpable, the air thick with tension. I knocked gently, hesitant to interrupt, but the doors swung open at the behest of Logan. "Freya," Logan said, his voice gruff and authoritative. The men seated around the table eyed me with curiosity, their gazes piercing and calculating. I bit my lip, my nerves fraying under the weight of their scrutiny. "I'm sorry to interrupt, Alpha," I said softly, my voice barely audible above the silence. "I just wanted to check on you." Logan hesitated, his dark eyes searching mine for a moment before he relented. "It's fine," he said, his tone softer than before. Logan motioned for me to come closer, his eyes betraying a hint of warmth as I stepped into the meeting room. The other men shifted in their seats, their expressions ranging from suspicion to mild amusement. Logan's gaze swept over the group of men, his jaw clenching as his eyes hardened. "The pack has matters to discuss," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "Leave." The men exchanged nervous glances, but none dared to defy Logan's command. Slowly they rose from their seats, bowing their heads in respect as they filed out of the room. Logan's breath was warm against my neck as he leaned in, his lips brushing against my skin. "You're all mine now," he murmured, his voice dark and possessive. I shuddered, my heart racing as the implications of his words sank in. My mind reeled, my thoughts tangled in a web of desire and fear. Logan's grip on my waist tightened, pulling me closer until I could feel the warmth of his body pressed against mine. Logan's lips trailed along the curve of my neck, his breath sending a rush of goosebumps down my spine. His fingers explored the contours of my body with a possessive hunger, leaving fiery trails of need in their wake. "Freya," he whispered, his voice hoarse with desire. "You have no idea what you do to me." My body ached with longing, my own desires aflame as I turned to face him, our lips hovering dangerously close. As our lips touched, the world seemed to fall away. Logan's kiss was demanding and possessive, leaving me breathless and longing for more. His tongue danced against mine, teasing and exploring with a fiery passion that set my whole body ablaze. I arched into him, the heat of his touch igniting every nerve in my body. Logan growled low in his throat, his hands roaming greedily over my curves as our kiss deepened. "Mine," he whispered between kisses, the word a dark promise that sent a shiver down my spine. "Freya's Pav." As the pleasure built within him, Logan's hips began to buck against my mouth, his moans and groans growing louder and more desperate. With one final primal roar, he reached the crescendo of his ecstasy, flooding my throat with his essence as he shuddered and cried out my name. I released him, my lips still tingling with the memory of his taste, a smirk on my face as I looked up at him. Logan lay back on the bed, his chest rising and falling rapidly as he recovered from the intense release. He looked at me with an adoring smile, a glimmer of mischief in his eyes. "Piccola, you are a goddess," he murmured, pulling me up to lay beside him. I rested my head on his chest, my fingers tracing idle patterns on his skin as we basked in the post-coital bliss. "I'm just a woman, Logan," I replied, my voice teasing. "A woman who's very good at what she does." Logan chuckled, his fingers trailing up and down my spine as he held me close. "You're not just any woman, Freya. You're my woman," he said, his voice dropping to a low growl. I raised an eyebrow, a playful smirk curving my lips. "My, aren't you possessive?" I teased, a shiver running through me as he traced a kiss along my collarbone. "Only when it comes to you, my love," he whispered, the warmth of his breath against my skin sending a fresh wave of desire through me. My heart raced as Logan's fingers explored my folds, teasing and tormenting me with each touch. A moan escaped my lips as his fingers found my sensitive spot, his skillful strokes sending waves of pleasure through me. I arched my back, pressing against his hand as he drove me closer and closer to the edge. "Logan," I gasped, my nails digging into his chest as he intensified his movements. His eyes gleamed with desire, his own arousal pressing against me as he savored my pleasure, each gasp and moan heightening his own ecstasy. "You taste better when you're needy." As the tremors of our shared release faded, we collapsed into each other's arms, our hearts still racing and our bodies slick with sweat. The night enveloped us, the scent of our passion mingling with the warmth of our embrace. As I drifted off to sleep, safe in Logan's arms, I knew that our love was more than just a fleeting moment. It was something eternal. And in that knowledge, I found a peace and a happiness that only he could give. I awoke with a groan, my head feeling like it was stuffed with cotton wool. I tried to sit up, but my body protested, a dizzying wave of nausea washing over me. Logan stirred beside me, his eyes fluttering open with concern etched across his face. "Hey, what's wrong?" he asked, his voice thick with sleep. I shook her head, her eyes darting around the room. "I don't know," I whispered, a sheen of sweat coating my skin. "I just feel so off." My stomach churned as I struggled to find my bearings. The room spun around me, my vision blurring as the sickness intensified. I tried to swallow the bile rising in my throat, but my efforts were futile. Logan's eyes widened with concern, his hand finding its way to my clammy forehead. "Are you sure you're okay, Freya?" he asked, his voice heavy with worry. I shook my head weakly, closing my eyes against the rising nausea. "I don't know, Logan. Something feels wrong." As the wave of nausea grew stronger, I scrambled out of bed, barely making it to the bathroom before I collapsed to my knees in front of the toilet. The first heave racked my body, my stomach rejecting everything within it in violent, writhing spasms. I clung to the porcelain seat, my body shaking as the sickness consumed me. Logan's footsteps echoed in the hallway as he rushed towards me, but there was nothing he could do but hold my hair back and whisper words of comfort as I emptied the contents of my stomach into the toilet bowl. As the violent retching subsided, I slumped back against Logan's chest, my body weak and exhausted. Tears streamed down my cheeks as I tried to catch my breath, his strong arms holding me steady as I trembled in his embrace. "It's okay, Freya," he murmured, his voice a soothing balm against the chaos within me. "You're going to be okay." I wiped the tears from my eyes, my mind still reeling from the violent purge. "What's happening to me, Logan?" I asked, fear and confusion twisting together in my heart. "Who knows, maybe you are pregnant," he chuckled. Logan's attempt at levity did little to ease the growing knot of fear in my stomach. "Pregnant?" My mind whirled with memories of the last time, the pain and devastation of the miscarriage still raw and tender. I met his gaze, my eyes clouded with doubt and anxiety. "I'm scared, Logan," I whispered. "I don't want to lose this one, too. I don't know if I can handle it." He pulled me closer, cradling me against his chest as he pressed a kiss to my temple. "Don't worry, Piccola," Logan reassured me, his voice soothing and warm. "Let's call the doctor so they can confirm whether you're pregnant or not." I nodded, still reeling from the shock of the situation. "But I can already hear a second heartbeat." Logan grinned, his eyes sparkling with mischief. He helped me clean up, wiping away the remnants of my sickness before guiding me back to bed. His words, though playful, sent a spark of hope through my heart, but I was still too afraid to truly embrace it. With me by his side, Logan placed a quick call to the pack's trusted physician. As we waited for the doctor to arrive, Logan pulled me onto his lap, cradling me gently as we waited in anticipation. The doctor entered the room with her medical kit in hand, her gaze full of warmth as she smiled at us. "Good morning, Alpha and Luna. How are you both feeling?" she asked, setting down her bag and preparing to run the necessary tests. The doctor extracted a small vial of blood from my arm, her movements swift and efficient. As she worked, Logan watched her intently, his arm protectively around my waist as he whispered soothing words into my ear. A few agonizing minutes passed as we waited for the results, the tension in the room palpable. Finally, the doctor cleared her throat and looked up at us with a knowing smile. "Well, Alpha," the doctor said, a hint of deference in her voice, "it seems you're going to be a father after all." Logan's gaze shifted from the doctor to me, a look of elation and pride in his eyes. "A father," he murmured, his voice filled with awe. "I can't believe it." The doctor turned to me, her smile softening as she spoke. "Congratulations, Luna. I know this is a big adjustment, but we'll make sure you get the best care throughout your pregnancy." I turned to the doctor, my gratitude evident in my voice. "Thank you, doctor," I said, my eyes flickering to Logan before returning to her. The doctor gave me a warm nod before gathering her things and taking her leave, the click of the door echoing through the room. Logan held me tighter, pulling me flush against his chest. "We're going to be a family, Freya," he murmured, the weight of his words heavy with emotion. "Just me and you and our little girl." "Who said it will be a girl?" I laughed. "Who said it wouldn't?" "Freya's Pav." The afternoon sun streamed through the windows, its golden rays bathing the room in a warm glow as I stirred from sleep. The sickness had subsided, leaving me feeling rejuvenated and energized. I pushed herself off the bed, stretching my limbs as I made my way out of the room. My thoughts turned to Emily, my friend and confidante, eager to share the news of my pregnancy. I descended the stairs, my footsteps light as she moved through the pack house. The sound of laughter and chatter filled the air, a testament to the lively spirit of the pack. The revelation of my pregnancy was still fresh, and I couldn't wait to share it with Emily, the one person who always knew how to make me laugh when I needed it the most. The sounds of the pack house washed over me, the infectious energy of my packmates, a welcome distraction from the whirlwind of emotions swirling within me. I smiled as I passed familiar faces, screwed of exchanging greetings and pleasantries as I made my way through the hallways. After a few moments of searching, I finally arrived at Emily's room. I raised my hand to knock, my heart racing with excitement. "Emily," I called out, a smile tugging at my lips. A moment later, the door swung open, revealing Emily's radiant face. A smile lit up her features as she enveloped me in a warm embrace. "Freya!" she exclaimed, her voice filled with joy. "What's got you grinning like a Cheshire cat?" I pulled away from Emily's embrace, the smile on my face widening. "I've got news, Em," I said, my voice barely containing my excitement. "Big news." Emily's eyes lit up with curiosity, her lips curved in anticipation. "Spill it, girl," she urged, guiding me into her room. "What's got you bursting at the seams like this?" I took a deep breath, still slightly stunned by the revelation myself. "I'm pregnant," I whispered, the words tumbling out in a rush of emotion. Emily's jaw dropped, her hand flying to her mouth, in shock. "Pregnant?" she gasped, her eyes widening in disbelief. "Oh my God, Freya! This is huge! How are you feeling? When did you find out? Wait, don't tell me, is Logan thrilled?" I laughed at her rapid-fire questions, overwhelmed with relief at being able to share this news with someone I trusted. "I feel okay now, but earlier I was feeling pretty sick," I replied, my mind still reeling from the doctor's confirmation. "Logan's ecstatic. He couldn't be happier." My smile faltered as I thought of the last pregnancy, the one that had ended so tragically. "Emily," I said, my voice low and trembling, "I'm scared." Emily's expression softened as she wrapped an arm around my shoulders, pulling me into a comforting hug. "I know you are," she whispered, "but this is a different pregnancy, a different baby. You can't compare the two. Remember, you have Logan with you this time, and you've got me too." Tears prickled at the corners of my eyes as I leaned into Emily's embrace, her words sinking in like a soothing balm. "You're right," I murmured, my voice choked with emotion. "I know Logan will never let anything happen to me or our baby. He's so protective." I pulled away from Emily, wiping away the tears that had spilled down my cheeks. "I just can't believe it's happening again," I whispered, overwhelmed by the mixture of joy and fear swirling within me. Emily and I sat on her bed, her comforting presence a balm to my tumultuous emotions. We talked for what seemed like hours, sharing jokes and memories, while also discussing the realities of pregnancy and motherhood. Finally, as the sun began to dip low in the sky, I knew it was time to head back to Logan. "I'd better get back," I said, standing up and smoothing out my clothes. "Thank you for talking with me, Em. I really needed it." Emily stood with me, wrapping me in one last hug. Emily smiled, her eyes full of warmth. "You're always welcome here, Freya. You know that." I nodded, my heart full of gratitude. "I know. I'm lucky to have you as a friend," I replied, returning her smile with one of my own. As I walked out of Emily's room and back into the bustling pack house, my mind was clearer than it had been since I first discovered I was pregnant. Despite the fears that still lurked in the corners of my mind, I was filled with a renewed sense of hope and determination. The cool evening breeze caressed my skin as I stepped out onto the balcony, the sounds of the pack house fading away as the gentle murmur of nature replaced them. I leaned against the railing, allowing the peaceful quiet to calm my racing mind. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps broke the serenity, and I turned to see Lucia approaching, a serene smile on her face. "Good evening, Freya," she said, her voice as smooth and soothing as ever. "Beautiful night, isn't it?" I nodded, appreciating her calm demeanor. Lucia's smile vanished, the sweet facade dropping away to reveal the venomous predator within. "Oh, I suppose you thought I didn't know about your little secret," she purred, a dangerous glint in her eyes. "Pregnant again, are you? It's almost as if the universe is giving you a second chance to get things right." She took a step closer, the malice in her voice intensifying. "Though, from what I've heard, you didn't do such a stellar job last time." My jaw clenched as Lucia's cruel words tore through me like daggers. "Go to hell, Lucia," I muttered, my voice raw with anger. "You have no right to speak to me like that." Lucia's eyes narrowed, her mouth twisting into a cruel smirk. "Oh, but I think I do have that right, Freya. After all, it was you who stepped into my territory, who caught my man's eye. And look at you now, carrying his child." She stepped closer still, her voice laced with venom. "But you won't last, Freya." Without warning, Lucia lunged at me, her sharp nails digging into my arms as she pinned me against the railing. She cackled, a dark, maniacal laugh that sent a shiver down my spine. "So predictable, Freya," she hissed, pulling a syringe from her pocket. "You really thought I'd let you walk away unscathed?" With a practiced precision, Lucia jabbed the syringe into my arm, plunging the wolfbane-laced liquid into my veins. The poison raced through me, its effects immediate and devastating. My limbs grew heavy, my muscles turning to jelly as the wolfbane worked its dark magic. I gasped for air, my lungs burning with each labored breath. Lucia watched with amusement, a cruel smile playing on her lips. There, she cooed, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "You won't be able to fight back now, will you, Freya?" She bent down, retrieving a length of silver chain from her pocket. With practiced ease, she shackled my wrists together, the silver burning my skin like acid. Freya's pav. The wolfbane coursed through my veins like a dark tide, sapping the strength from my body and weakening my mind. Lucia watched with cold, calculating eyes as I slumped against the railing, the silver chains biting into my wrists like venomous serpents. My mind reeled, the wolfbane muddying my thoughts. I knew I had to fight back, but the poison had drained my will, leaving me helpless against Lucia's ruthless assault. Rage and despair swirled through my body as I stared at the bruises marring my skin. How could Lucia have done this to me? How could she have turned on me so viciously, so cruelly? I clenched my fists, digging my nails into my palms as I fought to maintain control of my emotions. "I won't let her win," I whispered, the words barely audible through my clenched teeth. "I won't give up. Not now, not ever." My resolve hardened like steel, determination sparking within me like a wildfire. The weight of my situation settled heavily on my shoulders like a leaden cloak. The threat of another miscarriage hung over my head, casting a shadow of doubt and fear across my mind. Logan's joy was palpable, a beacon of hope that I desperately wanted to cling to. But the whispers of the pack, the doubts and accusations, those were the thorns that threatened to prick and bruise me, tarnishing the joy of this new life growing within me. "I can't lose this baby," I whispered, my voice quivering with emotion. "Not again." As if sensing my turmoil, Logan swept into the room, his arms encircling me in a protective embrace. But as he pulled away, his eyes fell upon the bruises that marred my skin, and his face darkened with concern. "Freya," he whispered, his voice low and urgent. "What happened? Who did this to you?" His eyes searched mine for answers, worry and anger simmering just beneath the surface. But how could I tell him the truth? Logan will kill her if he knows. His eyes searched mine for answers, worry and anger simmering just beneath the surface. My nervous chuckle faltered under Logan's piercing gaze, the flickering flame of his anger igniting a sense of unease within me. "Logan, it's nothing. I swear, just a scratch," I protested, my words as weak as my trembling hands. But his demeanor didn't soften. His nostrils flared, his fists clenched at his sides as he took a step forward, his voice a low growl. "Freya, I won't ask again. What happened? Who did this to you?" My heart thundered in my chest as Logan stood before me, his brow furrowed in a mixture of anger and concern. "Please, let it slide," I pleaded, my voice trembling as I met his intense gaze. "You're pregnant," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I won't let anyone hurt you." Before I could say another word, Logan turned and strode towards the door, his shoulders stiff with determination. "Stay here," he said over his shoulder, his voice firm. "I'll get you some medicine." Left alone, I curled up on the bed, a sense of dread creeping through my body. Logan had stormed out of the room, his anger and frustration palpable, leaving me to stew in the silence of my thoughts. But the peace was short-lived. The doorknob turned, and Lucia sauntered into the room, her movements confident and predatory. Well, if it isn't the darling pregnant wolf," she purred, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "I trust you told Logan it was nothing? He doesn't suspect a thing, does he?" "Listen, Lucia," I seethed, my temper rising like a tidal wave within me. "Don't make me use my powers on you. Don't forget I'm part witch." Lucia laughed, the sound reverberating through the room like the cruel bark of a hyena. "Pathetic," she spat, her voice dripping with contempt. "You're so weak, so helpless. You'll never find peace in this pack as long as I'm around." She stepped closer, her eyes flashing with predatory glee. "So, what are you going to do about it, little witch?" "I will expose you." Lucia's voice hardened, her smile twisting into a cruel sneer. "Oh, Freya, you're in over your head," she purred, her eyes flashing with malevolence. "Did you really think you could stop me? I've been planning this for a long time. I poisoned Logan with wolfsbane, intending to weaken him and claim his alpha position for people. But you, little witch, got in my way. Now, you're the obstacle standing between me and my victory. And you know what we do to obstacles?" Lucia's hand crept towards her waist, pulling out a silver dagger with a glint of cruelty in her eyes. "We remove them," she hissed, her words sharp as a blade. My heart thundered in my chest as I watched her approach, the cold metal of the dagger gleaming in the dim light of the room. There was no escape, no one to hear my cries. I was at Lucia's mercy. "Any last words, Freya?" She taunted, pressing the edge of the dagger against my throat, the silver searing my skin. With a surge of rage-fueled adrenaline, I summoned every ounce of strength I had left, slamming my elbow into Lucia's side. The force of the impact sent Lucia flying across the room, her body colliding with the wall with a sickening thud. My breath came in ragged gasps as I struggled to my feet, my body shaking with adrenaline. Lucia lay crumpled on the floor, a look of shock frozen on her face. "You think you can threaten my pack, my mate?" I snarled, my voice cold with fury. "Well, now you are dead." My heart was racing, my blood pulsing in my ears as Lucia lunged towards me, determined to cause harm. But just before she could reach me, Logan burst into the room, his speed and strength fueled by his protective instinct. He grabbed Lucia, dragging her away from me before she could do any damage. "You won't hurt Freya," Logan roared, his grip on Lucia tightening as she struggled against him. "Not this time. Not ever." "Not this time," Logan growled, his voice low and dangerous as he pulled Lucia away from me, his grip tightening around her arms. "You won't touch Freya, not ever. I won't let you harm our child like you did the last one." Lucia screamed, her face twisted with rage as she thrashed against Logan's hold. "You can't stop me," she cried, her words laced with venom. "I'll make her bleed. Just like your last child, I'll make sure she loses this baby too." Logan's voice was ice cold, his fury simmering just beneath the surface as he dragged Lucia away by her hair. "You've shown your true colors," he spat, his grip tightening as he marched towards the door. I see you have no respect for your alpha. I followed behind them, my heart still racing as we exited the room. Guards! Logan bellowed, his voice echoing through the halls. The sound of footsteps approached, and the guards quickly fell in line. Lock her up, Logan commanded, his gaze fierce and unforgiving. And pluck out her eyes, then banish her out of this pack and into the woods. The guards' jaws tightened as they listened to the Alpha's commands, their eyes fixed on Lucia as she squirmed in Logan's grasp. No, please, Logan, don't do this, she begged, tears streaming down her face. I thought you loved me. Please, don't turn me into a blind rogue. But Logan's expression remained unmoved, his eyes colder than the sharpest winter frost. You showed no respect for your Alpha and Luna, he snarled. Now you will suffer the consequences. Guards, take her away. Freya's pav. As night fell over the pack house, the air still charged with tension, Logan and I retreated to my room. Logan sat me down on the bed, his face somber and filled with concern. Freya, he said softly, his voice laced with a gentle firmness. I love you, and I will always protect you, but you need to learn to stand up for yourself, for our baby. What happened with Lucia was unacceptable. You can't let people like that walk all over you. You need to find your strength, your courage, and defend yourself when you need to. Logan took my hands in his eyes holding mine with an intensity that seemed to penetrate my soul. I know you're scared, Freya. I understand that. But you're stronger than you realize. You have a power within you that's waiting to be unleashed. He brushed a stray lock of hair from my face, his touch gentle and reassuring. I'm here for you, always, but you need to learn to stand on your own 2 feet, for yourself, for our baby. I want our child to have a mother who is strong and resilient. I want you to be that mother. Freya, I understand that fear, Logan said softly, his thumb tracing patterns on the back of my hand. But you can't let that fear control you. Our child deserves a strong mother, a mother who isn't afraid to fight for what's right. He reached out, cupping my cheek with his palm. You're stronger than you give yourself credit for, my love. I've seen it. Remember when you fought that rogue to protect me? You didn't hesitate. You acted with courage and strength. I love you, Piccola. I smiled at the loving pet name Logan had given me, feeling a wave of warmth wash over me. I love you too, Logan, I whispered, my voice filled with affection. Logan gently pulled back the covers, easing me into the soft embrace of the bed. Rest, Piccola, he murmured, pressing a tender kiss to my forehead. You need your strength for the baby. I snuggled into the covers, my eyes fluttering closed as I listened to Logan's footsteps fade away. A sense of peace had descended upon the pack, and, with it, a new sense of serenity filled my heart. I'd never felt this light, this unburdened, in ages. Lucia's malevolent presence was but a distant memory now, leaving me free to bask in the warmth and harmony of the pack. The prospect of motherhood brought its own kind of joy and wonder, filling me with a sense of hope and purpose. Each day was filled with the promise of a new beginning, a chance to nurture and protect the precious life growing within me. With each passing day, my affection for Logan and our unborn child deepened, a tender bond forged in love and strengthened by the trials we'd faced together. I found myself contemplating the future with renewed optimism, envisioning a life filled with laughter, adventure, and the warmth of family. As the sun shone through the pack house windows, its golden rays filtering through the leaves of the surrounding forest, I breathed in the crisp morning air and smiled. For the first time in what felt like ages, the future was full of promise, and I knew that, together with Logan, I was ready to embrace it. With the day stretching out before me, I decided to indulge in a bit of harmless snooping, an unexpected pastime that offered a glimpse into Logan's world. Stepping into his office, I gently closed the door behind me and surveyed the room, a curious grin tugging at my lips. His desk was a patchwork of papers, each one bearing his bold, decisive handwriting. I ran my fingers along the edges of the pages, a secret thrill coursing through me as I imagined myself piecing together the inner workings of the Alpha's mind. What the hell? My curiosity turned to shock as I unearthed a familiar picture nestled in Logan's drawer, a photograph of my mother, the same one my father had given me to help me remember her. I picked it up, the creased edges feeling brittle beneath my trembling fingers. I could hardly believe my eyes, my mind racing with questions and a growing sense of unease. Why was Logan in possession of this photograph? The sound of approaching footsteps jolted me out of my confusion, and I quickly returned the photograph to its hidden spot, arranging the contents of the drawer as I'd found them. Fuck. The familiar click of the doorknob had me snapping upright, a forced smile plastered on my face as Logan strode into the room. "Freya!" he exclaimed, surprise and delight mingling in his voice. "What are you doing in my office?" "Oh, I was just looking around," I replied, my voice sounding unnaturally cheerful. Logan's gaze narrowed, his astute perception piercing through my forced cheerfulness. "What's wrong?" he demanded, his tone sharper than usual. My resolve crumbled, and I sighed, extending the photograph to him. "Who is she?" I asked, my voice betraying the raw emotion that coursed through me. Logan took the picture from my hand, his frown deepening. "Nobody," he replied, but his eyes told a different story. The flicker of something hidden, something guarded, danced across his face for the briefest moment before he averted his gaze. A flash of anger rose up within me, my temper igniting like a raging wildfire. "I don't think so, Logan," I retorted, my tone sharper than usual. "You're hiding something." His jaw tightened, the hint of annoyance in his voice striking a nerve. "Freya, I don't want to do this right now," he said, his eyes cold and distant. My temper boiled over, and with a scoff, I turned on my heels, the air crackling with tension. "Fine," I spat, my voice dripping with venom. I stormed out of Logan's office, my heart hammering against my ribcage. I had so many questions in my head, I needed answers. Logan's POV. Freya had been avoiding me all day, and Xavier, damn him, had been enabling her. I understood why she was upset. I knew she wanted answers about her mother's picture, but I had a lot going on. Kia and his schemes were at the forefront of my mind, and as Alpha, it was my responsibility to protect the pack. I couldn't afford to be distracted, but every time I caught sight of Freya's hurt expression, I felt a sharp pang in my chest. I had to do something, but not now. "Xavier, we've got to do something," I growled, frustration mounting in my voice. "Kia doesn't have good intentions. He's planning something." Xavier nodded, the weight of our shared concern shadowing his expression. "Someone must have helped him escape, but how?" he muttered, his brow furrowing in thought. I ran my hands through my hair, exasperated. Fighting enemies is one thing, but when that enemy becomes family, it makes things more complicated, I muttered. "Xavier," I growled, "Kia is dangerous. He doesn't give a damn about family or pack loyalty. If he's escaped, we need to find him, and fast, before he hurts Freya or anyone else in the pack." Xavier nodded solemnly. "I agree, Alpha, but if he's escaped, he must have had help. The question is who, and where did he go?" "Xavier," I growled, frustration simmering in my veins, "Kia has always been one for secrets and manipulation. If he's escaped, he has a plan, and we need to figure it out before it's too late. He's slippery, like a snake in the grass." Xavier furrowed his brow, his eyes searching mine for a solution. Xavier nodded, a determined gleam in his eye. "We'll find the traitor, Logan. They'll pay for betraying our pack, and once we flush them out, we can figure out what Kia's up to." I clenched my fists, the primal urge to defend my pack fueling my resolve. "In the meantime, we prepare for war," I declared. "I know Kia and his followers will strike soon. We need to surprise them, take them by the throat before they even see it coming." Xavier nodded grimly, a glint of steel in his eyes. Xavier stood tall, his shoulders square, exuding an aura of calm power. "Alpha, I will rally the pack. They will follow you into the jaws of hell if you ask it of them. We will be ready when Kia makes his move." I nodded, my gaze sweeping across the pack house, envisioning the attack, the bloodlust, the deafening roar of battle. But a nagging concern dug at the back of my mind, pulling my thoughts back to Freya. "And what of Freya?" I said, my voice a low, dangerous whisper. "We must protect her," Xavier said, his voice a mixture of steel and compassion. "Kia knows she's pregnant. He'll target her, knowing it will cripple you." My jaw tightened, a snarl rising in my throat. "He won't touch her," I growled, the possessiveness and primal urge to protect my mate surging through me. "We'll post guards outside her room, day and night. No one enters or leaves without my permission." Xavier nodded, understanding the gravity of my words. "Yes, Alpha, but remember, Freya is strong. She's fought her own battles. She is a silver wolf, Xavier continued, his eyes gleaming with respect. She may be pregnant, but she's no fragile flower. She's a survivor. I nodded, remembering the fearless way Freya had taken on that rogue to protect me. She is a warrior, I agreed, my voice tight with emotion. But that won't stop me from keeping her safe. Not this time. Xavier's lips quivered into a small, grim smile. No, not this time, he agreed. With Xavier gone, I rose from my chair, my heart heavy with a combination of fear and longing. My feet carried me away from my study and towards Freya's room, each step a battle between wanting to comfort her and needing to protect her. I paused outside her door, taking in the mingling scents of lavender and pine that reminded me so keenly of her. I missed her smile, her voice, her very presence, and my resolve wavered for a moment. But this was about more than our relationship. This was about the pack and the war that loomed on the horizon. With a heavy heart, I turned the doorknob and slipped into the room, the gentle patter of the shower echoing from the ensuite bathroom. The room was filled with Freya's scent, a balm to the raw nerves that coursed through me. I stood there, rooted to the spot, torn between protecting her and simply enjoying her presence, if only for a moment. The soft pad of my footsteps on the carpet was nearly inaudible, but I still paused as I approached the bathroom, my hand hovering over the handle. I undressed quickly, my eyes never leaving the door to the bathroom, my instincts heightened by the vulnerability of my state. Naked and unarmed, I slipped inside, the steam from the shower enveloping me like a cloak. I moved towards the shower, silent as a shadow, the mist obscuring my form until I was standing behind Freya. I wrapped my arms around her, feeling her muscles tense at my touch. For a moment Freya stiffened, the instinct to fight rising within her. But then she relaxed, a soft sigh escaping her lips as she leaned into my embrace. "Logan," she whispered, turning in my arms to face me. Her eyes were wide, searching my face, her fingers gently grazing my jawline. "What's going on? I'm worried." I closed my eyes, breathing in her scent and letting it calm me. "I know," I murmured, brushing my lips against her temple. "I know, but I'm here now." "I am sorry, Piccola," I breathed out, inhaling her scent. "About?" "Earlier, I hate when you are mad or angry at me," I mentioned. "Logan's Pav. I missed you." Freya's admission was like a balm to my soul, melting away the icy grip of fear and tension. "I miss you too," I murmured, my voice husky with emotion. As I held her neck, I trailed kisses along her skin, savoring the sweet taste of her flesh. Her pulse thrummed beneath my lips, a reminder of the life that beat within her. "I'm sorry," I whispered against her neck, my hands roaming over her body, memorizing every curve. "I'm so sorry for everything that's happened." As I held Freya in my arms, our bodies pressed together, I felt the weight of my confession settle on my shoulders. "My world is dark and complicated," I said, my voice raw with emotion. "I shouldn't have brought you into it. If I had known better, I would have protected you from this life." My mind drifted back to the first time I saw Freya, her eyes fiery with defiance, even as her father sold her to me as a breeder. "I felt something that day, something I couldn't name," I continued, my voice low and intense. "I passed it off as dislike, as resentment at the idea of being forced into a breeding contract. But my wolf knew better. He knew you were meant to be mine, even if I didn't want to accept it." I kissed Freya's neck again, the saltiness of her skin mingling with the steam of the shower. "I should have protected you," I murmured, my heart heavy with regret. As Freya turned to face me, her eyes brimming with unshed tears, I was struck by the fierce conviction in her words. "I don't care about the darkness or the complications," she said, her voice fierce and unwavering. "You're my mate, Logan, and I'm your Luna. I'll stand with you, no matter what comes our way." The sincerity and raw emotion in her words stirred something deep within me, a feeling of warmth and belonging that I hadn't realized I'd been missing. Freya's words hung heavy in the steam-filled air, each syllable a testament to the strength of our bond. "We're soulmates, Logan," she said, her voice ringing with conviction. But her words also served as a painful reminder of the secret I'd been keeping, a secret that threatened to tear us apart. If she learned the truth, would she still think of me as her soulmate? Or would she see me as a monster? "Freya," I said, my voice cracking, there's something you need to know." "What is it, Logan?" she asked, her voice a teasing melody. I shook my head, giving her a playful grin as I brushed my thumb across her cheek. "You're cute when you pout, Piccola," I said, using her nickname to diffuse the tension. Freya smiled, her eyes softening. "You know I'm not going to let you avoid this, right?" she said, her gaze locking with mine. "Whatever it is, I can handle it." Her words stirred something deep within me, a longing to share the burden that had been weighing on my soul. But the risk of her leaving me, of her hating me, it was too great. "I'll tell you when the time is right, Freya," I said, my voice heavy with emotion. "For now, just trust me." Freya's questions lingered in the air as we finished our shower, but I gently steered the conversation away from her mother, instead focusing on the future, on our child and the life we were building together. As we settled into bed, the room enveloped in a warm, inviting stillness, I held her close, my fingers tracing patterns on her skin. "I love you, Freya," I murmured, my breath a whisper against her ear. "I love you and our child. I'll protect you both with every breath in my body until you give birth and beyond." As Freya drifted off to sleep, the gentle rise and fall of her chest a lullaby to my soul, my thoughts turned once more to Kia, to the secrets that threatened to tear our world apart. I knew I couldn't keep this from Freya forever. But if I told her the truth, if I revealed the part I'd played in the tragedy that had scarred her childhood, would she forgive me? With a sigh, I closed my eyes, surrendering to sleep. But even in the arms of Morpheus, my dreams were haunted by the ghosts of the past. 5 months had passed, each day a blur of hope and love as Freya and I prepared for the arrival of our child. But on that fateful day, as I stirred a hearty stew for my mate, our lives took an unexpected turn. Elena burst into the kitchen, her expression a mask of panic. "Alpha!" she cried, her voice urgent. "Freya's in labor. You must come quickly." I dropped the spoon, abandoning the meal without a second thought. I dashed down the hall, my heart pounding against my ribs. As I pushed through the door to our bedroom, the sight that greeted me nearly stole the breath from my lungs. Freya writhed in pain on the bed, her body convulsing with each contraction. Her face was a mask of agony, her teeth clenched as she fought through the pain. I rushed to her side, taking her hand in mine. "Freya," I said, my voice urgent and soothing. "I'm here, love. I'm here." Freya clutched at me, her fingers digging into my flesh as I swept her into my arms. Without another moment's delay, I raced through the pack house, her lithe form cradled against my chest. Outside, the night was cool and moonlit, but I paid no mind to the shadows or the chill in the air as I dashed through the trees, my feet pounding against the earth. The pack hospital loomed in the distance, the scent of antiseptic and herbal remedies mingling in the air as we burst through the doors. The doctor's expression was a mix of compassion and urgency as he directed us towards the birthing room, a haven of warmth and soft light. Freya whimpered in my arms, her face damp with sweat, as she tried to find the strength to endure the contractions. I laid her down gently on the bed, her lips parting as she fought to catch her breath. "It's time," I said to the doctor, my voice rough with worry. The doctor nodded, his hands moving with the precision of years of experience. "We're ready," he assured me, his voice calm but firm. Logan's POV. Freya's contractions came faster now, each wave of pain cresting higher and more intense than the last. I held her hand, my other palm soothing the damp hair from her brow, whispering words of encouragement and love. The doctor moved with practiced efficiency, his team of nurses assisting him as Freya began to push. The air was charged with anticipation, each breath a prayer for the safe arrival of our child. Freya groaned, her grip tightening on my hand. "Logan," she gasped, tears filling her eyes. "I'm so scared." "I'm here, Freya," I murmured, brushing my lips against her cheek. "I won't leave your side. We're in this together, love. You're so strong. Our child is lucky to have a mother as strong as you." She squeezed my hand, her body shuddering with the effort of bringing our child into the world, but through the pain, a fierce determination shone in her eyes. "I love you, Logan," she breathed. "I love you so much." The doctor's voice cut through the haze of emotion, his words charged with excitement. "Keep going." Freya's labor seemed to stretch into an eternity, each contraction a test of her endurance, her strength ebbing as the minutes ticked by. Sweat beaded on her brow, the soft groans of pain becoming guttural cries. "You're doing amazing, Freya," the doctor urged, his voice a mix of admiration and encouragement. "You're almost there, love," I whispered, my words a chorus with his. Freya gripped the sheets, her eyes squeezed shut as the next wave of pain crashed over her. And then, just when Freya seemed to reach the limits of her strength, the air was pierced with a high-pitched wail, a cry that filled the room with wonder and joy. The doctor held up a tiny bundle, swaddled in a soft white blanket, our child's face scrunched in the disgruntled indignation of a newborn. "It's a boy," he declared, his voice thick with emotion. I beamed at my mate, tears blurring my vision. "Freya, you did it," I whispered, my voice trembling with pride. Freya smiled through her tears, a warm light igniting in her eyes as she held out her arms. "Let me hold him," she whispered, her voice filled with awe. I nodded, transferring our son into her embrace. As she brought him close, he quieted, his little fingers curling around hers, a look of contentment settling over his features. "Hello, little one," Freya murmured, her voice tender and sweet. "Welcome to the world, my baby boy." The sight of Freya's tears, glistening like diamonds in the soft light of the room, tugged at my heartstrings. Leaning down, I pressed a tender kiss against each one, savoring the salty, sweet taste of her tears. "Don't cry, love," I whispered, my lips brushing against her cheek. "We have so much to be thankful for. Our son is here, and he's perfect." Freya smiled, her eyes shining with love. "Our son," she repeated, the words ringing with wonder. The tender moment was shattered by Xavier's sudden appearance, his expression frantic. "Alpha," he cried, breathless and desperate. "The pack is under attack. A rival pack has infiltrated our territory." Instantly, my heart plunged into my stomach, my veins coursing with icy adrenaline. "Where?" I barked, vaulting to my feet. "The main village," Xavier replied, his chest heaving with exertion. "They've already breached our defenses." Sweeping Freya and our newborn into my arms, I turned and raced from the birthing room, a sense of urgency and dread consuming me. "Come, love," I breathed, his voice urgent but calm. "We need to get you to the bunker." Freya clutched our baby tightly against her, her face pale but resolute. My heart hammered in my chest as I rushed through the pack house, the precious weight of my mate and our newborn son cradled in my arms. The thought of losing them, of failing to protect them, threatened to consume me. "Logan," Freya whispered, her voice trembling, "I'm scared." I bit back a curse, my jaw clenched tight. "I know, love," I murmured, trying to calm her fears even as my own threatened to overwhelm me. "But I won't let anything happen to you or our son, I promise." I rushed down the hallways, my feet moving with a speed born of desperation. With each step, the sounds of battle grew louder, the howls of enraged wolves and the clang of metal echoing through the air. Finally, I reached the entrance to the bunker, a heavily reinforced door hidden behind a tapestry. As I slipped inside, Freya's eyes widened with surprise. "Logan," she breathed, her voice thick with disbelief. "Stay here," I said, my voice gruff with emotion. "Stay safe." As I turned to leave, Freya's voice stopped me in my tracks. "No." Her voice was steady, a fierce determination blazing in her eyes. "I won't stay here while you fight alone." My heart twisted in my chest, torn between wanting to protect her and wanting her by my side. "Freya," I began, my voice filled with raw emotion. "I'm your Luna, Logan," she said, her voice fierce and determined, "and I will fight for you, for our pack, for our son. Now give me a weapon." "Freya, stay here," I said, my voice brooking no argument. "Please." I pressed the silver dagger into her hand, her fingers closing around the hilt. "If anyone enters the bunker, use this to protect yourself and our son," I said, my heart twisting with fear. Freya's gaze held mine for a moment, her jaw set in defiance, but with a nod of understanding she relented. Leaving Freya behind, I hastened from the bunker and joined Xavier, his eyes gleaming with adrenaline and worry. Together, we raced towards the battle, the air alive with the cloying scent of blood and fear. With a deep breath, I closed my eyes, letting my primal instincts surge to the fore. My bones cracked, my muscles convulsed, and as my skin rippled and stretched, the transformation overtook me. Logan's Pav. Shaking out my fur and flexing my claws, I gave Xavier a fierce, feral grin. "Let's show these bastards what happens when they mess with the NorthRidge pack," I growled, my voice deep and guttural. Xavier bared his fangs in a snarl, the hairs on his back bristling with rage. Together, we charged into the fray, our teeth and claws tearing into the enemy's ranks. The battle was brutal. a clash of tooth and claw, of savage strength and primal fury. Xavier fought with equal ferocity by my side, his gleaming fangs stained with crimson. But for every wolf we took down, 2 more seemed to spring up, the NorthRidge forces relentless. "Go!" Xavier growled, his muzzle dripping with the blood of our enemy. "Get to the safe house?" The terrified woman nodded, bolting through the carnage, her footsteps swift and sure. Xavier returned his attention to the battle, fighting with renewed fury as the image of Freya, alone and vulnerable in the bunker, pushed him to ever greater feats of strength and speed. Across the battlefield, I caught sight of a familiar figure, a ghost from my past. Kia's eyes met mine, his expression contorted with rage and hate. A primal howl of rage tore from my throat as I lunged towards Kia, his name a snarl of loathing on my tongue. He met my attack with ferocity, our claws and teeth clashing as we traded blows in a dance of death. But in my rage, I left myself open and Kia took the opportunity to land a devastating blow, his claws raking across my flank. I yowled in pain, staggered by the assault. "You think you can defeat me, brother?" Kia snarled, his eyes gleaming with madness. I shook off the pain, blood painting my brownish fur a brilliant shade of crimson. Kia's scent reeked of treachery, of betrayal, and I knew that I could not let him win. With a roar of fury, I launched myself at him once more, our bodies colliding with the force of 2 unstoppable tides. The sounds of the battle around us became a distant roar, the crack of bone and scent of blood all that filled my senses as I fought tooth and claw to bring Kia down. "You just made a big mistake, Logan." Pain lanced through my side, sharp and unexpected. As I twisted away from Lucia's treacherous blade, my eyes met hers, cold and merciless. "You should have stayed blind," I snarled, my fangs bared in a vicious grimace. Lucia hissed, her voice dripping with contempt. "You were always a fool, Alpha," she spat. "You never saw the power I held." In the corner of my vision, I caught sight of the witch doctor, her hands raised, fingers spidering through the air as she chanted dark, primal incantations. Around us, the rogue wolves seemed to grow larger, their fangs sharper, their claws like scythes. They fought with a ferocious energy that seemed almost otherworldly, driven by the dark magics of the witch doctor. As I dodged Lucia's frenzied attacks, I knew that we were fighting not only wolves, but something far more sinister. A part of me, deep in my wolf's heart, knew that we could not win against such power alone. "Freya," I mumbled, feeling uneasy immediately. Something was wrong with her, and I could feel it. My heart froze, the cry of my son echoing through my veins. I immediately flung Lucy's away. Lucia's body lay crumpled against the wall, blood pooling beneath her, but my mind was already racing towards the dire implication of her words. Kia had taken our son. Freya stumbled into my arms, her face tear-streaked, her body trembling. "They took him," she sobbed, her voice breaking on the words. Rage threatened to consume me, the primal instincts of the wolf driving me to hunt down Kia and rend him limb from limb. Adrenaline coursed through my veins as I sprinted into the woods, my paws pounding against the earth. The scent of Kia was a miasma of betrayal and blood, and with every step, my rage intensified. Freya was close behind me, her paws slipping on the damp earth, her breath coming in ragged gasps. But she was undeterred, her desperation lending her strength. The trees loomed overhead, their branches clawing at the night sky. I plunged deeper into the forest, my primal instincts driving me on. And then suddenly I came upon them. As I emerged from the trees, the scene before me was a nightmare made real. Kia stood at the edge of the waterfall, my son cradled in his arms, a twisted smirk on his face. "Come any closer," he snarled, his eyes glittering with mad triumph, "and I'll drop your pup into the falls." Freya whimpered beside me, the agony in her voice nearly bringing me to my knees. But I forced myself to remain strong, my wolf's instincts screaming for vengeance. "Trust me, you don't want to do this. I will kill you if you touch my baby." That was Freya. Kia laughed, a mirthless, hollow sound. "Oh, you'll kill me? What a brave little doggy you are, Freya, so full of fight even now." Freya growled, her eyes flashing with feral rage. "I will kill you if you harm my pup," she hissed, her words carrying a deadly promise. Kia's smirk widened. "So predictable, both of you," he sneered. "But then that's always been your downfall, hasn't it, Alpha? Your love for your mate, your pack." Kia shook his head, his eyes gleaming with bitterness. "Father was a fool," he spat, his voice shaking with rage. He saw a fighter in you when all I saw was weakness. He couldn't see that I was the true alpha of the NorthRidge pack. I should have been his heir, but he chose you. Freya snarled, her hackles rising. You're nothing but a jealous little runt, she snapped, her voice a mixture of disgust and fury. Kia's eyes snapped to her, his gaze filled with hatred. Tell your breeder to watch her mouth. She is my mate. Now give me my baby. Kia laughed, a manic glee twitching at the corners of his mouth. Or what? He taunted. What will you do? Kill me? You won't do that. You're too soft, too weak. That's why you'll never be a true alpha. Give me my baby, Kia. I asked again, and hearing our son's cry made my heart break. But then, with a cruel laugh, he let go of our child, sending him tumbling into the churning water below. Ops! No! I howled, lunging towards Kia, my teeth bared and snarls rumbling in my throat. But even as I fought, my mind was screaming, a single thought screaming above the chaos. Our sun was falling. I dived into the waterfall as I caught Freya passing out from the corners of my eyes. Freya's pav. The pain was a consuming fire, burning away all hope and leaving nothing but ashes in its wake. Every breath was a struggle, each heartbeat an echo of loss and despair. The brief, precious moments with my child had only served to deepen the chasm of grief within me, the memory of his little face, his soft cries, searing themselves into my soul. I couldn't help but wonder, what had I done in this life, or in a past life, to deserve this? I knew there was no easy path to healing from this loss, this destruction of my world. I had watched as Logan dived into the churning water, his desperate attempts to reach our child, his anguished roar as he resurfaced, our son's limp body cradled in his arms. It was a moment that seared itself into my very soul, a moment that broke something within me that I feared would never heal. To see the light snuffed out from the child we had brought into this world, to see the life fade from his tiny body, it was a pain I could scarcely bear. The white petals of the baby's breath flower seemed to mock me as they were laid upon the casket, the innocence of the gesture at odds with the pain that bled from my soul. Logan's words of vengeance rang in my ears, but my mind was elsewhere, the words no more than hollow echoes against the silence of my grief. As Kia and his forces attempted to flee, some were captured, their screams of pain echoing through the pack house as they were interrogated for information. But even as justice was meted out, my heart remained numb, deadened by the loss that had consumed me. I wanted Kia dead, and I must achieve that. Logan's gentle touch on my cheek, his whispered reassurances, were a balm to my soul, but my heart felt closed off, a fortress of grief. I'm okay, I lied, pulling away from his embrace. Turning on my heel, I walked away from the funeral, away from the casket being lowered into the earth, away from the pain of loss. Behind me, I could feel Logan's presence, his steps following mine. But I couldn't face him, not now, not when my heart was a wasteland of sorrow. The words tumbled from my lips before I could stop them, the grief and pain lacing them like poison. I need space, I whispered, my voice a fragile whisper of the woman I once was. Logan's hand fell away from my waist, the warmth of his touch gone. Freya, he said, his voice hoarse with emotion. Let me help you. I don't want you grieving alone. But I pulled away from him, my head held high even as my heart ached with loss. Logan reached out to me, his hand trembling as it hovered in the air. Freya, he whispered, his voice ragged with emotion, your pain is my pain. Don't push me away. Let me help you carry this burden. But as I looked into his eyes, all I saw was the reflection of my own grief, the loss of our child, fracturing our love like a jagged crack in the ice. You have a pack to lead, Logan, I said. You should focus on that. Your people are hurt too. Freya, plea. Logan's plea hung in the air, unspoken, unanswered. Stop, I said, raising my hand in a silent gesture of rejection. Please, Logan. His arms fell away from my waist, his embrace no longer a source of comfort, but a reminder of what we had lost. Call me if you need anything, he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. As he leaned in to press a gentle kiss against my forehead, I remained rigid, a statue of pain and sorrow. I will, I lied, turning away as he disappeared into the shadows. 5 hours had passed, each minute a lifetime of sorrow. I sat alone under the sprawling branches of an ancient tree, the moonlight a cool balm on my tear-stained cheeks. The forest around me was silent, save for the gentle rustle of leaves and the quiet patter of tears falling onto the damp earth. I had wept for hours, my grief a torrent of rage and pain that threatened to consume me. But as the light of dawn began to filter through the trees, my tears subsided, a numbness settling in their place. The tears had dried on my cheeks, my eyes burning from the salt of my grief. But the pain had retreated, buried deep within my heart, like a slumbering beast waiting to awaken once more. As the morning light began to break through the trees, I rose to my feet, my body aching with fatigue. I knew I couldn't stay here forever, lost in the shadows of my pain. But where could I go? Why can't I ever find peace? I whispered to the forest, the words echoing in the empty space around me. What have I done to deserve this? My tears fell anew, hot and bitter as they streamed down my cheeks, the sorrow in my heart heavy as stone. The silence of the forest was no comfort, the hush of the woods nothing more than a mockery of my anguish. Freya, a voice called from the shadows, the gentle croon of a creature of the night. I turned towards the voice, my heart aching with dread and curiosity. With a swift shift into my sleek silver wolf form, I was off like a bolt of lightning through the forest, desperate to escape the weight of my grief and Logan's hovering presence. But he was not to be dissuaded, his powerful strides eating up the ground as he pursued me, his jaws snapping at my heels. The wind rushed past my ears, a howling chorus of my pain and his devotion. I leapt over logs and dodged through underbrush, pushing myself to the limits of my speed and stamina, determined to outrun not only Logan, but the pain that threatened to consume me. Exhaustion finally caught up with me, my paws slipping on the damp forest floor as I skidded to a halt. Logan was there, his powerful form looming over me, pinning me to the ground with a swift and decisive lunge. I snarled, my fangs flashing in the dappled light as I tried to wriggle free. But Logan's grip was unyielding, his eyes fixed on me with a mix of concern and determination. "Freya," he growled, his voice tinged with sadness. "Please, love, let me in." As I transformed back into my human form, I melted into Logan's arms, my sobs racking my body like a violent storm. "Logan," I cried, the grief and despair pouring from me in a torrent. "Our baby, our son, he's gone." Logan pulled me close, his arms a refuge from the tempest of my sorrow. "I know, love," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "But you're not alone. We'll get through this together.